The roofline buckled under torrents of wind and rain. Noah gripped the ladder with both hands, water streaming down his face, visibility near zero. Below him, Ava shouted something he couldn't hear over the storm's roar. One wrong move and the entire structure would collapse, taking with it her company, his future, and any chance they had left. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not like this. Not when they were so close. But Daniel Cross had made sure the odds were stacked against them from the start, and now the storm was finishing what corruption had begun. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city name so I can see how far this story travels. Now, let's go back to where it all started. Noah Carter stood in the driveway of 428 Maple Ridge Lane, staring at the house like it might bite him. 2 stories of peeling paint, sagging gutters, and windows so dirty they looked intentional. The porch steps had rot so bad he could probably put his boot straight through them. He'd seen worse maybe, but not by much. His phone buzzed, a text from his ex-wife. "Liam's asking when you're picking him up. Don't be late again." Noah pocketed the phone without responding. He wasn't going to be late. He was never late anymore. That was the old version of himself, the one who'd lost everything because he couldn't get his life together. This version showed up. This version didn't make excuses. He pulled his toolkit from the truck bed, the metal toolbox scraping against the liner with a familiar sound that steadied him. The job was simple on paper: full gut renovation, 4-month timeline, fixed contract. The pay was good, better than good actually, which should have been his first warning. Jobs that paid this well usually came with hidden problems. But Noah needed the money, and he needed the work. Sitting still made him think too much, and thinking led nowhere useful. The front door opened before he reached it. A woman stepped out, and Noah's first thought was that she didn't belong here. Not in this wreck of a house, not in this quiet town where most people wore work boots and flannel. She was dressed in a charcoal blazer and black slacks, her hair pulled back in a way that looked both effortless and deliberate. She carried herself like someone used to being listened to. "Noah Carter?" she said. "That's me, Ava Sterling." She extended her hand, and her grip was firm, no nonsense. "Thank you for coming on short notice. Your email said you needed someone who could start immediately." "I do." She stepped aside, gesturing him into the house. "And I need someone who won't quit halfway through when things get complicated." Noah raised an eyebrow. "Complicated how?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she walked him through the main floor, pointing out structural issues, outdated electrical, plumbing that probably hadn't been updated since the 70s. Her voice was calm, factual, like she was reading from a checklist. But there was tension underneath it, something she was working hard to keep controlled. They ended up in what used to be a kitchen. The cabinets hung at odd angles, and the floor had a slope to it that made Noah feel slightly off balance. "This house belonged to my late father," Ava said, running her hand along the countertop. "He bought it 30 years ago, always said he'd fix it up. Never did." "Why now?" She looked at him, and for a second the mask slipped. He saw exhaustion there, the kind that came from carrying too much for too long. "Because I'm out of options," she said. "My company is hemorrhaging money. Investors are circling, waiting for me to fail. I need to flip this property, prove I can execute a project on time and under budget, or they pull funding entirely." "And if they pull funding?" "Then I lose everything." Noah set his toolbox down on the uneven floor. He should have walked away. A desperate client with investors breathing down her neck was a recipe for disaster. Timelines would slip, budgets would tighten, and when things went wrong, and they always went wrong, he'd be the one left holding the bag. But he thought about Liam, about the custody hearing in 6 months, about how his lawyer had looked at him and said, "You need to show stability, employment, proof that you've turned things around." "I'll take the job," Noah said, "but I'm going to need full autonomy. I don't work well with micromanagers." Ava almost smiled. "I don't micromanage. I set expectations and let people meet them. And if I don't meet them, then I find someone who will." Fair enough. The first 2 weeks went smoothly, which should have been another warning sign. Noah worked alone most days, tearing out old drywall, pulling up rotted floorboards, hauling debris to the dumpster he'd rented. The physical labor felt good, gave him something to focus on besides the constant low-grade anxiety that lived in his chest these days. Liam came by on weekends. 7 years old, all knees and elbows, with his mother's dark hair and Noah's tendency to ask too many questions. "Is this going to be someone's house?" Liam asked, standing in the middle of the gutted living room. "Yeah, buddy, once it's fixed up." "It looks like a skeleton," Noah laughed. "That's exactly what it is. We're rebuilding it from the bones up." Liam walked over to where Noah had been working on the support beam, running his small hand along the exposed wood. "Mom says you're good at building things." "She said that?" "Yeah. She said you just weren't good at other stuff." Noah's throat tightened. He knelt down so he was eye level with his son. "She's right. I messed up a lot of things, but I'm trying to do better now." "I know," Liam said, like it was the simplest thing in the world. Ava stopped by most afternoons, always with her laptop, always taking notes. She'd walk through the house, inspect Noah's progress, ask questions that showed she actually understood construction. It threw him off at first. Most clients just wanted to know when things would be done. Ava wanted to know how they'd be done. "You don't have to check in every day," Noah said one afternoon, halfway through replacing the kitchen subfloor. "I'm not checking in. I'm documenting." "Documenting what?" She held up her phone, showing him a photo she'd just taken of the new floor joists. "Every phase of this project. Materials used, timeline, compliance with code. When this house sells and my investors see the results, I want a complete record of how it was done." "You don't trust them?" "I don't trust anyone," she said. Then, after a pause, "No offense." "None taken." She tilted her head, studying him. "You're different than I expected." "How so?" "Most contractors I've worked with are either overconfident or trying to upsell me on things I don't need. You just do the work." Noah shrugged. "I don't have time for anything else." "Single dad, right? That's what your references said." He stiffened. He didn't like talking about his personal life, especially not with clients. But Ava's tone wasn't judgmental, just curious. "Yeah," he said. "My son's 7. I'm trying to get joint custody." "Trying?" "His mom has primary right now. Court says I need to prove I'm stable first." Ava nodded slowly. "That why you took this job?" "Part of it." She was quiet for a moment, then said, "Well, for what it's worth, you're doing good work. Better than I expected, honestly." It was the closest thing to a compliment he'd gotten in months, and it landed harder than he wanted to admit. The problems started in week 3. Noah had applied for the electrical permit 2 weeks prior, standard procedure, and it should have been approved within days. Instead, he got a notice saying the application was under review, then another notice saying additional documentation was required, then a third notice scheduling an inspection for a permit that hadn't even been approved yet. "This doesn't make sense," Noah said, showing Ava the email chain. "I've done this 100 times. There's no reason for this kind of delay." Ava's jaw tightened. "Who's the inspector?" "Guy named Daniel Cross." Her expression shifted, something dark passing behind her eyes. "Of course it is." "You know him?" "Unfortunately." She set her laptop aside, rubbing her temples. "Cross has a reputation. He's been making things difficult for anyone he thinks is connected to my company." "Why?" "Because someone's paying him to." Noah stared at her. "Are you serious?" "Completely. I've been dealing with this for months. Permits that disappear, inspections that find violations that don't exist, contractors who suddenly back out of projects. It's all connected." "Who's behind it?" "I don't know yet. But whoever it is wants me to fail, and they're using Cross to make it happen." Noah leaned back against the workbench, processing. He'd dealt with difficult inspectors before, guys who were sticklers for code or had a chip on their shoulder, but this sounded like something else entirely. "So what do we do?" he asked. "We document everything," Ava said. "Every delay, every request, every inspection. If Cross is dirty, I want proof." "And if he shuts us down anyway?" She met his eyes, and there was steel there. "Then we find another way." Daniel Cross showed up unannounced on a Thursday morning. Noah was in the middle of running new wiring when he heard the truck pull up. He climbed down from the ladder, wiping his hands on his jeans, and walked outside. Cross was maybe 50, with a gut that hung over his belt, and a face that looked like it had been carved from raw irritation. He didn't bother with introductions, just started walking around the property with a clipboard, making notes. Electrical permit still hasn't been approved, Noah said. I'm aware, Cross said, not looking up. Any idea when it will be? When I'm satisfied with the documentation. I've submitted everything you asked for. Cross stopped, turning to face him. You questioning my process, Mr. Carter? Noah held his ground. I'm questioning the timeline. This should have been approved 2 weeks ago. Well, maybe if you'd followed the code properly, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I followed every code to the letter. Cross smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We'll see about that. He spent the next hour going through the house, pointing out supposed violations that Noah knew weren't real. A stud placed 2 inches off center, a junction box that was improperly secured even though it met code exactly. A window opening that was allegedly the wrong size, despite matching the architect's plans. Noah followed him through the whole inspection, biting back every argument that wanted to come out. Arguing with Cross would only make things worse, and they both knew it. When Cross finally left, Noah stood in the driveway, hands clenched into fists, watching the truck disappear down the street. His phone rang. Ava. How bad? She asked. Bad. He's going to bury us in write-ups. Can you fix them? There's nothing to fix. Everything he flagged is fabricated. Ava was quiet for a long moment. Then we appeal. I'll contact the county, file a formal complaint. That'll just slow us down more. I know, but we don't have another choice. On. The delays started piling up. Every permit took twice as long. Every inspection found new problems, each one more ridiculous than the last. Noah worked longer hours, trying to stay ahead of the setbacks, but it felt like running on a treadmill. The harder he pushed, the less progress they made. Ava was there almost every day now, not just documenting, but actively fighting back. She filed complaints, contacted county officials, threatened legal action. Noah watched her operate and realized she wasn't just trying to save a company. She was trying to prove something. To her investors, maybe. Or to herself. One evening, after Cross had left yet another absurd violation notice, Ava sat on the porch steps, head in her hands. Noah sat down next to her, keeping a respectful distance. You ever think about just walking away? He asked. She looked at him like he'd suggested jumping off a bridge. No. Not even for a second? If I walk away, I prove everyone right. Every investor who said I couldn't handle pressure. Every board member who voted against me. Every person who's been waiting for me to fail. She shook her head. I don't get to walk away. Noah understood that. He'd felt it himself, the weight of people's expectations, the fear of proving them right. For what it's worth, he said, you're tougher than anyone I've worked with. She glanced at him, something softening in her expression. You're not bad yourself. They sat there in silence for a while, watching the sun set behind the tree line. It was the first moment of quiet they'd had in weeks. The photograph changed everything. Noah didn't know it had been taken. He didn't know Cross had been watching from across the street, camera in hand, waiting for the perfect moment. It was nothing, really. Just Ava and Noah standing close in the doorway, her hand on his arm, both of them laughing about something he couldn't even remember now. A moment of humanity in the middle of chaos. But in Cross's hands, it became something else. The photo showed up first in an anonymous email to Ava's biggest investor. Then it appeared on a construction gossip forum, with insinuations about conflicts of interest and improper relationships. By the time Ava's phone started ringing with concerned board members, the damage was already spreading. Noah found out when Ava showed up at the site, her face pale, her hands shaking. We have a problem, she said, and showed him the photo. Noah's stomach dropped. Where did this come from? Cross. Has to be. He's been watching us. It's nothing. We were just talking. I know that. You know that. But to my investors, it looks like I'm compromising the project with personal involvement. Her voice cracked just slightly. They're already questioning my judgment. This gives them exactly what they need to push me out. So we explain it. Tell them the truth. The truth doesn't matter, Ava said, and the bitterness in her voice was sharp enough to cut. Perception does. And right now, the perception is that I'm too close to this project, too close to you, and that's affecting my ability to lead. Noah felt something cold settle in his chest. What are you saying? Ava looked at him, and he saw the decision already made in her eyes. I'm saying you need to finish this job and stay away from me. No more check-ins, no more conversations. Just do the work and keep your distance. Ava, I can't afford this, Noah. I can't afford to lose everything because of a photograph. She walked away before he could respond, leaving him standing in the half-finished house, surrounded by the work they'd been building together. Oh. The next 3 weeks were hell. Noah worked alone, pushing through the final stages of the renovation with a focus that bordered on obsession. He didn't see Ava, didn't hear from her except through terse emails outlining what still needed to be done. The distance felt wrong, like something essential had been cut out of the project. But he kept going. He finished the electrical, installed the new plumbing, rebuilt the kitchen from scratch. Every nail he drove, every board he laid, felt like an act of defiance against Cross, against the investors, against everyone who wanted to see them fail. Liam noticed the change. "You're sad," he said one Saturday, sitting on a sawdust-covered workbench. "I'm fine, buddy." "You don't look fine." Noah set down his drill, looking at his son. "Sometimes work gets hard. But we push through anyway, right?" "I guess." Liam swung his legs. "Is it because of the lady?" Noah froze. "What lady?" "The one who was here before. Mom said you were working for someone important." "It's not about her, it's just complicated." Liam nodded like he understood, even though Noah knew he didn't. 7-year-olds shouldn't have to understand things like corruption and reputation and the way the world could punish you for just trying to do something good. The storm warning started on a Monday. Noah checked the forecast and felt his stomach tighten. A major system moving in. Severe thunderstorms, high winds. The kind of weather that could tear through a construction site and undo months of work in a single night. The roof was almost finished, but not quite. There was still a section in the back that needed flashing, still gaps that hadn't been sealed. If the storm hit before he could secure it, water would pour straight into the house, destroying everything they'd worked for. He called Ava. She didn't answer. He texted her, "Storm coming, need to secure the roof. This is urgent." 3 hours later, she responded, "Do what you need to do." That was it. No acknowledgement of the risk, no offer to help, just cold professionalism. Noah worked through the afternoon, racing against the darkening sky. But by 6 p.m., the winds were already picking up, and the first drops of rain started falling. He climbed down from the roof, looking at the section he hadn't finished, knowing it wasn't enough. He could leave. Should leave, probably. The storm was going to be bad, and trying to work through it was dangerous. But if he left, the house would flood. All that work, all that effort, gone. He thought about Ava, sitting somewhere watching her company collapse because of a photograph and a corrupt inspector and a world that didn't care how hard you fought. He thought about Liam, asking why he looked sad. He thought about the man he used to be, the one who gave up when things got hard. Noah grabbed his toolkit and started climbing back up the ladder. The storm hit like a freight train. Within minutes, the wind was tearing at the tarps, rain coming down in sheets so thick Noah could barely see his hands in front of him. He worked by feel, securing the flashing, sealing the gaps, doing everything he could to protect the vulnerable sections of roof. That's when he heard the truck. Through the rain, he saw headlights pulling into the driveway. A door slammed. Someone was shouting his name. Ava. She appeared at the base of the ladder, soaked to the skin, her hair plastered to her face. "What are you doing?" she yelled over the wind. "Saving your house. Get down from there. It's not worth dying over. It's worth finishing." She stared up at him, and even through the storm, he could see something shift in her expression. Then she started climbing. "What are you doing?" Noah shouted. "Helping." She reached the top, gripping the roof edge with white knuckles. For a second, they just looked at each other. Two people who'd been forced apart now standing together in the middle of a storm that didn't care about photographs or reputations or anything except whether they were strong enough to hold on. "Tell me what to do," Ava said. Noah handed her the roll of flashing tape. "Hold this side. I'll secure the other." They worked together, fighting the wind, fighting the rain, their hands moving in sync even though they'd barely spoken in weeks. The roof groaned beneath them, the whole structure shaking with each gust. But it held. And so did they. By the time they finished, Noah's arms were shaking from exhaustion. They climbed down the ladder together, collapsing on the covered porch, both of them drenched and gasping. Ava started laughing. Not a polite laugh, but something wild and exhausted and real. "We're insane," she said. "Probably," Noah agreed. She looked at him, rain dripping from her chin. "I'm sorry. For pushing you away. For making this about perception instead of what's real. You were trying to protect your company. I was trying to protect myself, and I did it by hurting someone who didn't deserve it." She wiped water from her face. "Cross wins if we let fear make our decisions for us. I'm done letting him win." Noah nodded. The storm raged around them, but for the first time in weeks something felt right. They sat there together, watching the rain, knowing that tomorrow would bring new problems. But tonight, they'd held the line. They'd proven that some things were worth fighting for, even when the whole world was trying to tear them down. The house stood, and so did they. The morning after the storm, Noah woke up with his shoulders screaming and his hands so stiff he could barely make a fist. He'd slept maybe 3 hours, most of it on the couch in his apartment with his work clothes still on. When he finally dragged himself to the job site at 6 a.m., he half expected to find the roof caved in, water damage throughout the house. Everything they'd fought for, destroyed. Instead, it was standing. Battered, sure. Some shingles torn loose, a gutter hanging at an angle. But the critical sections they'd secured held. The interior was dry. Ava's car was already in the driveway. He found her inside, standing in the middle of the living room with her phone pressed to her ear, pacing. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and she was wearing jeans and a sweatshirt instead of her usual blazer. She looked younger like this, less like a CEO, and more like someone who'd just survived something difficult. She saw him and held up one finger, wrapping up her call. "I understand your concerns, Richard, but the project is on schedule. Last night's storm didn't set us back." A pause. "Yes, I'm aware of the photo. No, it doesn't change anything about the timeline or the budget." Another pause, longer this time. Her jaw tightened. "Because I'm not going to dignify gossip with a response. The work speaks for itself." She ended the call and shoved the phone in her pocket. "Investors?" Noah asked. "The worst one. He's been looking for an excuse to pull funding since day one." She rubbed her eyes. "How's the damage?" "Minimal. We got lucky." "We got smart," she corrected. "You could have left. Most people would have." Noah shrugged. "Most people don't need this job as badly as I do." She studied him for a moment, then said, "I meant what I said last night, about being sorry, about pushing you away. You were protecting yourself. I was being a coward." She walked over to the window, looking out at the debris-scattered yard. "I spent so long building walls around myself, making sure no one could get close enough to hurt me or compromise what I was trying to build. And then Cross takes one photograph and suddenly all those walls don't matter anyway. So what changed? You came back." She turned to face him. "In the middle of a storm, when you had every reason to walk away, you came back. And I realized that protecting my reputation means nothing if I lose who I am in the process." Noah didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded. Ava pulled out her phone again, this time opening up a document. "I've been documenting everything Cross has done. Every delay, every fabricated violation, every suspicious timing. I have dates, emails, witness statements. It's not enough to prove corruption yet, but it's a start." "What are you going to do with it?" "I'm going to bury him." There was no anger in her voice, just cold determination. "But I need more. I need something concrete that ties him directly to whoever's paying him. You think you can find it?" "I think I have to try." Work resumed with a new intensity. Noah pushed through the final phases of construction while Ava juggled investor calls and built her case against Cross. They fell into a rhythm, not talking much but moving around each other with an efficiency that felt natural. She'd show up with coffee in the mornings, he'd update her on progress without her having to ask. Small things, but they mattered. Liam came by on Saturday, and this time Ava was there. Noah tensed when he saw his son walking up the driveway, worried about how this would look, how it might get twisted into something it wasn't, but Ava just smiled and introduced herself. "You must be Liam," she said, crouching down to his level. "Your dad talks about you a lot." Liam looked at Noah, surprised. "He does?" "All the time. Says you're pretty smart." "I'm good at math," Liam said. Then, with the bluntness only a 7-year-old could manage, "Are you my dad's boss?" Ava glanced at Noah, something amused flickering in her expression. "I guess you could say that. I own the house he's fixing. It looks better than before. That's because your dad's really good at his job. Liam beamed and Noah felt something loosen in his chest. Watching them interact, seeing Ava treat his son like an actual person instead of an inconvenience, made him realize how rare that was. Most people in his life treated Liam like background noise, something to be managed or worked around. Ava just talked to him. "Can I help?" Liam asked. Noah started to say no, but Ava spoke first. "Sure, we need someone to hold the measuring tape. Think you can handle that?" Liam nodded so hard Noah worried he'd hurt his neck. They spent the next hour working together, the three of them, measuring out the final sections of trim that needed to be installed. Liam took his job seriously, holding the tape exactly where Ava told him, calling out measurements with exaggerated precision. Noah caught Ava's eye once and saw her smiling, really smiling, not the professional mask she usually wore. When his ex-wife pulled up to collect Liam, Noah walked his son to the car. Rachel rolled down her window, her expression already suspicious. "Who's that?" she asked, nodding toward Ava. "The client." "Looks cozy." Noah kept his voice level. "She owns the property I'm renovating." Rachel studied him, and he could see her cataloging everything, looking for ammunition to use later. "Just remember you're supposed to be proving stability, not getting distracted." "I'm not distracted, I'm working." She didn't look convinced, but she didn't push it either. Liam climbed into the back seat, waving at Ava through the rear window as they drove off. When Noah walked back to the house, Ava was cleaning up the measuring tools. "Your ex seems nice," she said, and the sarcasm was obvious. "She's protective. She's looking for reasons to keep your son away from you." Noah tensed. "You don't know that. I know the type. I've dealt with enough people who think control equals care." She handed him the tape measure. "For what it's worth, you're a good dad. Liam's lucky." "Doesn't feel like it most days." "That's how you know you care, but..." The second inspection happened on a Wednesday. Cross showed up with a county official this time, a thin man named Morris who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. They went through the house together, Cross pointing out supposed violations while Morris took notes. Noah followed them, biting his tongue every time Cross fabricated another problem. A window installed improperly, even though it matched code exactly. Wiring that was unsafe, despite being textbook standard. A support beam that was allegedly the wrong size, never mind that it had been approved on the original plans. Morris looked uncomfortable the whole time, glancing between Cross and Noah like he knew something wasn't right but didn't want to say it. When they finished, Cross handed Noah a sheet with 14 violations listed. "You've got 2 weeks to address these," Cross said. "If they're not fixed, the project gets shut down." "Half of these aren't real," Noah said. "Are you calling me a liar, Mr. Carter?" Morris shifted his weight, clearing his throat. "Maybe we could..." "The violations stand," Cross interrupted. 2 weeks. They left, and Noah stood in the empty house, staring at the sheet in his hands. 14 violations. 2 weeks. It was impossible, and Cross knew it. His phone rang. "Ava." "How bad?" she asked. He read her the list. With each violation, her silence grew heavier. "He's trying to run out the clock," she finally said. "If we miss the deadline, my investors pull out. The project fails, I lose the company. Can you extend the deadline? Not without showing weakness. They're already circling." Her voice cracked slightly, just enough that Noah noticed. "I don't know how much more of this I can take." "We'll figure it out." "Will we? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like Cross has us exactly where he wants us." Noah didn't have an answer for that. Chub. He worked 18-hour days for the next week, addressing violations that didn't exist, fixing things that weren't broken, documenting everything in case they needed to appeal. Ava was there most nights, going through paperwork, making calls, fighting battles Noah couldn't see. One evening, around 11 p.m., he found her sitting on the floor in what would eventually be the dining room, surrounded by printouts and notes, her laptop balanced on her knees. "You should go home," Noah said. "Can't. I'm close to something." "Close to what?" She looked up, and her eyes were red-rimmed from staring at screens too long. "Cross has been blocking permits for other projects too, not just ours. I've been tracking the pattern, and there's a connection. All the projects he's targeted are tied to properties in this area, properties that would increase in value if they were developed." "Someone's buying up the area?" "That's what I think. If they can force owners to sell cheap, keep development stalled, they can control the market." She shuffled through papers. I just need to find out who's behind it. Noah sat down next to her, picking up one of the printouts. It was a county filing, dense with legal language he barely understood. You really think you can prove this? He asked. I have to. She set the laptop aside, leaning back against the wall. Because if I don't, Cross wins. Whoever's paying him wins. And I lose everything I've worked for. They sat in silence for a moment, the house quiet around them except for the occasional creak of settling wood. Why does it matter so much? Noah asked. The company, I mean. There are other jobs, other opportunities. Ava was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer than he'd ever heard it. My father built that company from nothing, spent 40 years turning it into something that mattered. When he died, he left it to me, and everyone said I'd run it into the ground within a year. She picked at a loose thread on her jeans. My board wanted to sell. My investors wanted to cash out. Even my own daughter thought I should walk away. But you didn't. No. Because I needed to prove I could do this, that I wasn't just my father's daughter riding on his legacy, that I could build something real on my own. She looked at him. Sound familiar? It did. Noah thought about Liam, about the custody hearing, about the constant pressure to prove he'd changed, that he was worthy of being a father. Yeah, he said. It does. Ava smiled, tired but genuine. We're both trying to rebuild, aren't we? Just in different ways. Seems like it. She started gathering her papers, organizing them back into folders. You know what the worst part is? I'm not even sure it's worth it anymore. Fighting this hard, sacrificing this much. Sometimes I think about just letting it go, selling the company, taking the payout, and walking away. But you won't. No. She closed her laptop. Because I'm too stubborn. And too scared of what it would mean to quit. Noah understood that too. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Morris, the county official who'd accompanied Cross on the inspection, showed up at the site on a Friday afternoon, alone. He looked nervous, glancing over his shoulder like he expected Cross to materialize out of thin air. I need to talk to you, Morris said. Both of you. Is Ms. Sterling here? Inside, Noah said, immediately on guard. They found Ava in the kitchen, reviewing cabinet measurements. She looked up when Morris entered, her expression going wary. Mr. Morris, this is unusual. I know, and I shouldn't be here. He pulled off his glasses, cleaning them on his shirt. But I can't keep watching this happen. Watching what happen? Morris glanced at Noah, then back to Ava. Cross is dirty. I've known it for months. He's been taking payments to delay projects, falsify inspections, anything that keeps certain properties from being developed. Ava went very still. Do you have proof? Not the kind that would hold up in court, but I have names, dates, patterns. Enough to point you in the right direction. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket. This is a list of every project Cross has interfered with in the last year. If you cross-reference the property owners, you'll find most of them sold to the same shell company within months of their projects being shut down. Ava took the paper, unfolding it carefully. Her hands shook slightly. Why are you telling us this? She asked. Morris looked uncomfortable. Because I got into this job to help people build things, not to watch corrupt inspectors tear them down. And because my daughter's been following your story in the business news, she thinks you're doing something important. He put his glasses back on. I can't testify. I have a family to support. But I can give you this. It might be enough, Ava said quietly. Thank you. Morris nodded and left quickly, still looking over his shoulder. After he was gone, Ava spread the paper out on the counter. Noah stood next to her, reading the list. 14 properties, all in the same neighborhood, all blocked by Cross at various stages of development. This is it, Ava said. This is what I needed. What are you going to do? I'm going to find out who owns that shell company. And then I'm going to make sure everyone knows what they've been doing. The next week was a blur of research and phone calls. Ava tracked down property records, corporate filings, financial disclosures. She worked with a lawyer, a bulldog of a woman named Patricia who specialized in real estate fraud. Together, they built a case, piece by piece, connecting Cross to the shell company to a real estate investment firm, the investment firm to a man named Richard Vance, the same Richard who'd been calling Ava weekly, pressuring her to sell. He's been sabotaging his own investment, Patricia explained during a conference call. By tanking the property value and forcing you into a corner, he could buy you out cheap, finish the project himself, and flip it for maximum profit. That's insane, Noah said. It's capitalism, Patricia corrected. Sociopathic capitalism, but still legal in most respects. Where he crossed the line was bribing a government official. Can we prove it? Ava asked. We're close. I need one more piece, a direct payment, an email, something that ties Vance to Cross explicitly. Ava leaned back in her chair, thinking. Noah could see the gears turning. What if we forced his hand? She said. How? We finished the project. On time, under budget, perfect execution. We take away his leverage. Patricia frowned. That's risky. If Cross shuts you down before you finish, he won't, because we're going to give him exactly what he wants. Noah looked at her. What are you talking about? Ava smiled, and there was something sharp in it. Cross wants us to fail, wants us distracted, desperate, making mistakes. So we're going to let him think he's winning. And while he's busy congratulating himself, we finish the work, document everything, and pull the rug out from under him. It was a dangerous plan, but looking at Ava's face, seeing the determination there, Noah realized it might be the only plan that worked. They worked around the clock for the next 10 days. Noah brought in 2 additional contractors, guys he trusted, and they blitzed through the remaining work. Flooring, trim, fixtures, final paint. Everything moving fast but precise, each step documented with photographs and timestamps. Ava handled Cross, feeding him just enough concern to keep him satisfied. She'd call with worried updates about delays, budget overruns, investor pressure. Cross ate it up, his smugness practically audible through the phone. Meanwhile, the house transformed. The kitchen gleamed with new appliances and custom cabinets. The bathroom sparkled with updated fixtures. Fresh paint covered every wall, neutral tones that made the space feel bigger, brighter. The floors were refinished hardwood, the windows replaced with energy-efficient models that actually opened properly. It stopped being a construction site and started being a home. Liam came by the day they finished the master bedroom. He walked through the space, eyes wide, touching everything carefully like he was afraid it might disappear. This is really cool, he said. You think so? Noah asked. Yeah, it's like a different house. That's the idea. Liam sat on the built-in window seat Noah had added, looking out at the backyard. Do you think whoever lives here will be happy? The question caught Noah off guard. I hope so. Me too. Liam turned to look at him. Mom says you might get to have me more soon, that the judge is going to decide. Noah's throat tightened. That's right. I want to stay with you more. I want that too, buddy. Then why can't we just do it? Why does a judge have to say it's okay? Noah sat down next to his son, trying to find words that would make sense. Because sometimes grown-ups mess up, and other grown-ups have to make sure they fix things before they get second chances. Did you mess up? Yeah, I did. Liam leaned against him. But you're better now. I'm trying to be. That should count for something. Noah wrapped his arm around his son, pulling him close. Out in the hall, he could hear Ava talking on the phone, her voice confident and controlled. Through the window, he could see the yard they'd cleared, the foundation they'd repaired, the structure they'd saved from collapse. Maybe Liam was right. Maybe trying should count for something. The final inspection was scheduled for a Thursday. Cross showed up with Morris again, both of them walking through the completed house. Noah and Ava followed, silent, letting the work speak for itself. Every violation Cross had cited was addressed. Every code requirement met. The house was flawless, and they all knew it. Cross stood in the living room, his clipboard hanging loose in his hand, his face twisted in barely contained frustration. He'd been expecting failure, counting on it. Instead, he was looking at success. Well, Ava said, her voice level. Any violations? Cross's jaw worked. Morris, standing slightly behind him, looked almost relieved. I'll need to review my notes, Cross finally said. Take your time, Ava replied. We'll wait. They stood there for 20 minutes while Cross went through every room again, desperate to find something, anything he could use. But there was nothing. The work was clean. Finally, reluctantly, Cross signed off on the inspection. Congratulations, he said. and the words sounded like poison in his mouth. You passed. After they left, Noah and Ava stood in the empty house, the silence almost overwhelming. We did it, Ava said quietly. You sound surprised. I am. A little. She walked over to the window, looking out at the street. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. Maybe there isn't another shoe. She turned to look at him. There's always another shoe. Noah wanted to disagree, but he understood the instinct. When you'd been fighting for so long, it was hard to believe the fight was actually over. His phone buzzed. A text from his lawyer. Court date moved up. Hearing is next Tuesday. Be ready. The custody hearing, 5 days away. Ava must have seen something in his face because she walked over. What's wrong? Nothing. Just the hearing's next week. That's good, right? You've been waiting for this. Yeah. He shoved the phone back in his pocket. Doesn't make it less terrifying. You're going to do great. You don't know that. I know you're a good father. I know you show up. I know you fight for what matters. She hesitated, then added, and I know Liam's lucky to have you. Noah looked at her, really looked at her, and saw something in her expression that made his chest tight. This woman, who'd been fighting her own battle, building her own case, protecting her own legacy, she'd taken time to see him, to see what he was going through. Thank you, he said, and meant it for more than just the words. She smiled, and for a moment, standing in the house they'd saved together, everything felt possible. That night, Ava's phone rang at 2 a.m. Noah wasn't there to hear it, but she told him about it later. How she'd answered, groggy and confused, to hear Patricia's voice on the other end. We got him, Patricia said. Vance just wired $50,000 to an offshore account registered to cross his brother-in-law. The idiot did it from his company email. Ava sat up in bed, suddenly very awake. You're sure? Completely. I have the transfer records, the email thread, everything. It's enough for the district attorney. What happens now? Now we go public. File the complaint, release the evidence, let the whole thing burn. Ava should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt tired. Do it, she said. By Friday morning, the story was everywhere. Local news picked it up first, then regional outlets, then the business press. Real estate fraud scheme exposed. County inspector arrested. Investment firm under investigation. Ava's name was all over it, not as a victim, but as the person who'd brought the whole operation down. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. Investors calling to apologize, to praise her tenacity, to reaffirm their commitment. Board members who'd doubted her now scrambling to congratulate her. The same people who'd been ready to push her out were now celebrating her victory. Noah showed up at her office that afternoon, finding her buried in paperwork and phone calls. She looked exhausted, but somehow lighter, like a weight had finally been lifted. How are you holding up? He asked. I'm not sure yet. She set down her phone. This morning, Richard Vance's lawyer called, trying to negotiate a settlement. This afternoon, 3 different real estate magazines wanted interviews. Tonight, I have a board meeting where everyone's going to act like they supported me all along. That's good, isn't it? It's surreal. She rubbed her temples. A week ago, these same people were ready to vote me out. Now I'm some kind of hero. You are a hero. You exposed corruption. I was trying to save my company. The corruption thing was just a bonus. Noah sat down across from her. You're allowed to feel good about this. Am I? She looked at him, and there was something vulnerable in her expression. Because mostly I just feel exhausted and angry that it took all this just to be taken seriously. Welcome to the club. She laughed, short and sharp. I guess we're both fighting the same battle, trying to prove we deserve a second chance. Difference is you won. We're not done yet. She pulled out her phone, showing him a calendar entry. Open house is scheduled for next Saturday. Final showing for investors, potential buyers, press. This is where we prove the whole project was worth it. And after that? Ava was quiet for a moment. After that, I don't know. Haven't thought that far ahead. Noah understood. When you spent so long focused on just surviving, it was hard to imagine what came next. But sitting there, in Ava's office, with the afternoon light coming through the windows and the sound of the city below, he let himself imagine it anyway. A future where the fighting was done, where they could both just breathe. His phone buzzed, another reminder about Tuesday's hearing, 4 days. Ava saw him tense. You're going to be fine. Everyone keeps saying that because it's true. She leaned forward. You've rebuilt your entire life in the last 4 months. You've shown up, done the work, proven you're reliable. The judge is going to see that. And if they don't, then you keep fighting, just like you've been doing. Noah wanted to believe her, wanted to trust that the work he'd done, the changes he'd made would be enough. But he'd learned the hard way that wanting something didn't make it true. The weekend before the hearing, Noah couldn't sleep. He'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, running through every possible scenario. What he'd say to the judge, how Rachel's lawyer would try to paint him as unstable, whether 4 months of sobriety and steady work would be enough to prove he'd changed. By Sunday night, he'd given up on sleep entirely and went to the job site instead, needing something to do with his hands. He was touching up paint in the hallway when he heard a car pull up. Ava's SUV. She came in carrying 2 cups of coffee and a bag from the diner down the street. Figured you'd be here, she said, handing him a cup. How'd you know? Because I know what it looks like when someone's running from their own thoughts. She set the bag on the counter. Eggs and toast. You need to eat. Noah took the coffee but ignored the food. I'm not hungry. You're nervous. There's a difference. He walked over to the window, looking out at the dark street. What if I screw this up? What if I say the wrong thing, or the judge decides 4 months isn't long enough, or Rachel's lawyer brings up every mistake I've ever made? Then you deal with it, same way you've dealt with everything else. That's not helpful. It's honest. Ava came to stand next to him. You want me to tell you it'll be fine? That the system's fair and judges always see the truth? I can't do that. But I can tell you that you've done everything right. You've shown up. You've worked hard. You've been there for your son. That has to count for something. Has to isn't the same as will. She was quiet for a moment, then said, My daughter didn't talk to me for 6 months after her father died. Noah turned to look at her, surprised. She blamed me for his stress, said the company killed him, and maybe she was right. Ava stared into her coffee. I threw myself into work after he passed, trying to prove I could handle it, that I was worthy of what he'd left me. And while I was doing that, my daughter was grieving alone. By the time I realized what I'd done, she'd already decided I cared more about the business than her. What changed? Nothing for a long time. She went to college, got her degree, started her own career. We'd talk maybe once a month, always surface-level stuff. Then about a year ago, she called me out of nowhere and said she wanted to have dinner. Ava's voice softened. I thought she was going to tell me she was getting married or moving away. Instead, she told me she'd spent years being angry at me for choosing work over her, and then she realized she'd been doing the exact same thing. Working constantly, avoiding relationships, building walls. She saw herself in you. Yeah, and she hated it, but it also helped her understand why I made the choices I did. Ava looked at him. The point is, relationships are messy. They don't follow timelines or logic. Sometimes you do everything right and still lose, but you keep trying anyway, because the alternative is giving up. Noah processed this, turning it over in his mind. Does she work with you now, your daughter? She's a financial compliance specialist, works independently, but we've collaborated on a few projects. A small smile crossed Ava's face. She's brilliant, sharp as hell, gets that from her father. Not from you? I'm stubborn. There's a difference. Noah found himself almost smiling despite the anxiety churning in his gut. Thank you for coming here, for the coffee, for the terrible pep talk, for treating me like I'm not alone in this. Ava's expression shifted, something warm and genuine replacing her usual controlled composure. You're not alone, Noah, even when it feels like it. They stood there in the unfinished hallway, the house quiet around them, and Noah felt some of the tension in his shoulders ease. Not much, but enough. Tuesday morning arrived too fast. Noah put on the only suit he owned, a charcoal gray thing he'd bought at a discount store for his father's funeral 3 years ago. It didn't fit quite right, the shoulders a bit too tight, but it was clean and professional, and that had to be enough. He met his lawyer, a tired-looking woman named Ellen, outside the courthouse. She'd been handling his case pro bono through a legal aid program, and while Noah appreciated her help, he could tell she was overworked and underpaid. She had 3 other hearings that day, and his was just one more file in her overstuffed briefcase. Remember, Ellen said as they walked through security, Answer directly, don't volunteer information, and whatever you do, don't get defensive. Judges hate defensiveness. Got it. And if Rachel's lawyer brings up the DUI, acknowledge it, take responsibility, but emphasize the changes you've made since. Noah's stomach twisted. The DUI. 2 years ago, the lowest point of his life, when he'd thought drowning his problems in whiskey was easier than facing them. He'd been lucky no one was hurt, but the arrest had been the final straw for Rachel. She'd filed for divorce a week later. The courtroom was smaller than he expected, barely bigger than a classroom. Rachel was already there with her lawyer, a sharp-faced man named Brennan, who looked like he enjoyed making people squirm. She didn't look at Noah when he sat down. The judge, a gray-haired woman named Martinez, reviewed the case file with an expression that gave away nothing. "Mr. Carter," she said, "you're petitioning for joint custody of your son, Liam Carter, age 7. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And you've completed the required parenting classes?" "Yes, ma'am." "You're currently employed?" "Yes, I've been working steady for the past 4 months, full-time construction." Judge Martinez made a note. "Ms. Carter, you're opposing this petition. On what grounds?" Rachel's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, while Mr. Carter has made recent improvements, his history shows a pattern of instability. Multiple job losses, substance abuse issues, and a DUI conviction 2 years ago. We believe joint custody would not be in the child's best interest at this time." "Mr. Carter has completed substance abuse counseling," Ellen countered. "He's been sober for 14 months, maintained steady employment, and by all accounts has been an active, engaged parent during his supervised visitation." "Supervised being the key word," Brennan said. "The court mandated supervision because of concerns about Mr. Carter's reliability. 4 months of employment doesn't erase years of poor decisions." Noah felt his jaw tighten. Ellen had warned him not to react, but sitting there listening to Brennan reduce his entire life to a list of failures made his blood boil. Judge Martinez held up her hand. "I'd like to hear from Mr. Carter directly." "Mr. Carter, why do you believe you're ready for joint custody?" Noah stood, his hands clammy. "Because I'm not the same person I was 2 years ago. I know I made mistakes, serious ones, and I'm not trying to pretend they didn't happen. But I've done everything the court asked me to do. I went to counseling, I got sober, I found stable work, and every week when I see my son, he asks me when he can spend more time with me. I can't keep telling him soon and not mean it." "What's changed, specifically?" the judge asked. Noah thought about the house on Maple Ridge, about the roof in the storm, about Ava's words in the hallway. "I stopped running from my problems. I used to think if I just ignored the hard stuff, it would go away. But all that did was make everything worse. Now I face things head on, even when it's difficult, especially when it's difficult." "And if I grant joint custody, what kind of environment would you provide for Liam?" "A stable one. I have a 2-bedroom apartment, steady income, a schedule that allows me to be there for school pickups and homework. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I'm present, and that's what he needs." Judge Martinez turned to Rachel. "Ms. Carter, do you have concerns about your ex-husband's current behavior specifically, or are your objections based primarily on past conduct?" Rachel glanced at her lawyer, who gave a small nod. "I just want what's best for Liam. And I don't know if Noah's really changed or if this is just temporary. Has he missed any scheduled visitations in the past 4 months?" "No." "Any incidents you're aware of that would indicate he's not maintaining sobriety?" Rachel hesitated. "No." "Then it seems to me," Judge Martinez said, closing the file, "that Mr. Carter has demonstrated consistent progress. However, I'm not prepared to grant full joint custody immediately." Noah's heart sank. "Instead, I'm ordering a gradual transition. Mr. Carter will have unsupervised weekend visitation starting immediately, with the possibility of expanding to joint custody after a 6-month review period. During that time, both parents will participate in co-parenting counseling. It wasn't everything Noah had hoped for, but it was something, more than he'd had before." "Thank you, Your Honor," he managed. As they filed out of the courtroom, Rachel caught his arm. Up close, he could see the exhaustion in her face, the worry lines that hadn't been there when they'd first met. "Don't make me regret this," she said quietly. "I won't. Liam's been asking about you constantly, talking about the house you're working on, about how you let him help." Her voice cracked slightly. "I need to know you're serious about this, that you're not going to disappear on him again." I'm serious, I promise. She studied his face, searching for something. Whatever she found must have been enough because she nodded. Okay, he can come stay with you this weekend. After she left, Noah stood on the courthouse steps, the midday sun warm on his face. Ellen patted his shoulder. Not a bad outcome, she said. Could have been worse. Could have been better. Most things could, but you've got a foot in the door. Don't waste it. He texted Ava the news from his truck. She called immediately. That's great, she said, and he could hear genuine happiness in her voice. When do you get him? This weekend, Friday night through Sunday. You nervous? Terrified. I haven't had him overnight in 2 years. What if I screw it up? You won't. Just be yourself. That's all he needs. Noah wanted to believe her, but the weight of it felt enormous. 2 full days alone with his son, no supervision, no safety net. Everything riding on him, not messing it up. You still there? Ava asked. Yeah, sorry, just processing. Want to meet for lunch? I could use a break from these investor calls anyway. They met at a small cafe near the courthouse, one of those places with mismatched furniture and a chalkboard menu. Ava was already there when Noah arrived, sitting by the window with her laptop open and her phone face down on the table. How'd the calls go? Noah asked, sliding into the seat across from her. Mixed. Half the investors are thrilled with the publicity, want to increase their stake. The other half are nervous about the corruption scandal, worried it'll reflect badly on the company. She closed her laptop. Can't win with everyone, I guess. You're not worried? About what? The company's in the best position it's been in years. The house is finished, the scandal exposed Cross and Vance, and the open house this weekend is already generating buzz. She picked up her coffee. For the first time in months, I'm not worried about survival. I'm thinking about what comes next. And what does come next? Ava's expression shifted, something uncertain flickering across her face. I don't know yet. Expand the company? Take on bigger projects, maybe. Or scale back, focus on quality over quantity. She paused. I've spent so long fighting, I'm not sure what it looks like when the fight's over. Noah understood that better than she probably realized. He'd been in survival mode so long, the idea of actually living felt foreign. You'll figure it out, he said. Will I? She turned her cup in slow circles. What if I'm only good at fighting? What if without something to struggle against, I just fall apart? Then you find something new to build. That's what you do, right? You build things. She smiled, small and genuine. When'd you get so wise? Somewhere between the DUI and the custody hearing. They ate lunch and talked about nothing important. The weather, the cafe's terrible coffee, a documentary Ava had watched about urban development. Normal conversation, the kind Noah hadn't realized he'd been missing. With Rachel, every interaction had been fraught with tension and history. With Ava, he could just exist. As they were leaving, Ava's phone rang. She checked the screen and sighed. My daughter, I should take this. Go ahead, she answered, her voice shifting to something warmer. Hey, sweetheart. No, it's fine. I was just having lunch. A pause. With a friend, the contractor I told you about. Another pause, longer this time. Yes, that one. Why? Noah couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but he saw Ava's expression change, something surprised and almost pleased crossing her face. This weekend? I mean, yes, I'd love that. The open house is Saturday afternoon, so maybe Sunday? She listened. Okay, perfect. See you then. She hung up, looking slightly dazed. Everything okay? Noah asked. She wants to come visit, my daughter. She's driving up Sunday to see me. That's good, right? It's unexpected. We usually plan these things weeks in advance. Ava slipped her phone into her purse. She said she saw the news coverage about the corruption case and wanted to check in on me, make sure I was okay. Sounds like she cares. Yeah. Ava's voice was soft. I guess she does. The next few days passed in a blur of final preparations. The house needed last-minute touches for the open house. Paint touch-ups, landscaping, staging furniture that would make the empty rooms feel lived in. Noah worked alongside a staging company Ava had hired, moving sofas and arranging artwork, trying to create the illusion of a home. On Friday afternoon, as he was installing the final light fixture in the dining room, his phone buzzed. Rachel, Liam's packed and ready. You can pick him up at 6. Noah's hands went shaky. This was it, the first real test. He finished the light fixture, cleaned up his tools, and drove to Rachel's house. Liam was waiting on the porch with a backpack and a sleeping bag, practically vibrating with excitement. "Dad!" Noah caught his son in a hug, feeling the small arms wrap around his neck. "Hey buddy, you ready?" "I've been ready all day. Mom made me pack like 3 times because I kept forgetting stuff." Rachel appeared in the doorway, her arms crossed. "He's got his inhaler, his allergy medicine, and enough clothes for a week even though it's 2 days." "Thanks." She looked at Noah for a long moment. "Be careful with him." "I will. And call me if anything happens." "Anything." "Rachel, he's going to be fine." "I know. It's just—" She trailed off, then shook her head. "Never mind. Go have fun." Liam chattered the entire drive to Noah's apartment, talking about school and his friends and a video game he wanted to play. Noah listened, soaking in the sound of his son's voice, the easy way he filled the silence. The apartment felt too small with both of them in it. 1 bedroom for Noah, 1 converted into a kid's room that had been empty for 2 years. Noah had spent the past week making it presentable. New bedding, some posters on the walls, a bookshelf stocked with age-appropriate books. It wasn't much, but it was something. Liam dropped his bag in the room and immediately started exploring, checking every drawer and closet like he was cataloging everything. "This is cool," he said, flopping onto the bed. "Can we get pizza for dinner?" "Sure, what kind?" "Pepperoni." "And can we watch a movie?" They ordered pizza and spent the evening on the couch, watching an animated film about robots that Liam had seen a dozen times but still found hilarious. Noah found himself relaxing, the earlier anxiety fading as he watched his son laugh at jokes he probably had memorized. When the movie ended, Liam yawned and leaned against Noah's shoulder. "I miss this," he said quietly. Noah's throat tightened. "Me too, buddy." "Are you going to keep getting better so I can stay with you more?" "Yeah, I am." "Promise?" "Promise." Liam fell asleep halfway through the second movie. Noah carried him to bed, tucking the blanket around him and standing in the doorway for a long moment, just watching him breathe. His son, here, in his home, safe and happy. He stepped into the hallway and pulled out his phone, scrolling to Ava's number. He didn't call, just stared at her contact for a moment, wanting to share this moment with someone who'd understand. Before he could talk himself out of it, he sent a text. "He's here. He's asleep. I'm not screwing this up." Her response came almost immediately. "I never thought you would." Check. Saturday morning, Liam woke him up at 6 a.m., bouncing on the bed like a spring. "Dad, can we make pancakes?" Noah groaned, pulling a pillow over his face. "It's 6 in the morning." "So? I'm hungry." They made pancakes, or rather, Liam tried to help while Noah attempted to prevent complete kitchen destruction. Batter ended up on the counter, the floor, somehow on the ceiling. But they laughed through all of it, and the pancakes turned out edible if slightly misshapen. After breakfast, Noah got a text from Ava. "Open house starts at 2. Could use an extra pair of hands for setup if you're available. Bring Liam if you want." Noah looked at his son, currently building a fort out of couch cushions. "Hey buddy, want to go see the house I've been working on?" Liam's eyes lit up. "Really?" "Really, but you have to promise to be careful. There's going to be a lot of people and fancy stuff." "I promise." They arrived at the house around noon. The staging company had transformed the place completely. Furniture in every room, artwork on the walls, fresh flowers on tables. It looked like something out of a magazine, polished and perfect. Ava was in the kitchen, directing workers as they arranged appetizers on platters. She was dressed more formally than Noah had seen before, a navy dress and heels, her hair styled in a way that probably took effort but looked effortless. "You made it," she said, then smiled at Liam. "And you brought an assistant." Liam puffed up. "Dad said I could help." "Good. I need someone to test the cookies and make sure they're not poisonous." Liam took the job very seriously, sampling 3 different kinds while Ava and Noah set up the guest book and information packets. "You look nervous," Noah said quietly. "I am. This is it. The culmination of everything we've worked for. If this goes well, the company's set for the next 5 years. If it doesn't—" She didn't finish the sentence. "It'll go well." "You don't know that. I know you, and I know this place. People are going to love it." Ava looked at him, and something passed between them, something warm and unspoken. Before either could say anything, her phone buzzed. Investors are arriving early. She smoothed her dress. How do I look? Like someone who just saved her company and exposed a corruption scheme. She laughed, short and bright. That'll have to do. The open house officially started at 2, and within minutes the place was packed. Investors, potential buyers, journalists, local officials, everyone moving through the rooms, admiring the craftsmanship, taking photos. Noah stood off to the side with Liam, watching Ava work the crowd with practiced ease. She answered questions, gave tours, presented the project like it was a masterpiece. And in a way, it was. Noah looked around at the space they'd created, at the house that had been a wreck 4 months ago, and felt something close to pride. This was his work. His hands had built this. One of the investors, an older man in an expensive suit, approached Noah. "You're the contractor?" he asked. "That's right." "Impressive work. Ms. Sterling speaks very highly of you." "She's been a good client." The man smiled knowingly. "From what I understand, she's been more than that. You two weathered quite a storm together, literally and figuratively." Noah wasn't sure how to respond to that, so he just nodded. "Well, whatever arrangement you have, it's working. This property is going to sell for well above market value." He extended his hand. "If you're ever looking for more work, give me a call." After he left, Liam tugged on Noah's sleeve. "What did he mean, arrangement?" "Just business talk, buddy." "Oh." Liam looked around at all the people. "This is really cool. You built all this?" "Most of it." "Can I tell Mom?" Noah's chest tightened. "Tell her what?" "That you made something amazing." He knelt down to his son's level. "Yeah, you can tell her." Bullshit. By 4 p.m., the crowd had thinned. The potential buyers had left their bids, the investors had made their congratulations, and the journalists had gotten their quotes. Ava stood in the empty living room, exhausted but satisfied. Noah found her there, Liam having fallen asleep on the couch in what used to be the den. "Well?" he asked. 5 offers, all above asking. She turned to look at him. "We did it, Noah. We actually did it." "You did it. I just swung the hammer." "Don't do that. Don't minimize what you contributed." She walked over to him, and there was something intense in her eyes. "This project would have failed without you. I would have failed. You were there when I needed someone, and you didn't run even when things got hard. Neither did you." They stood close, closer than was probably professional, and Noah felt something shift in the air between them. All the weeks of working together, fighting together, surviving together had built into this moment. "I should go," Noah said, but he didn't move. "Probably." "Liam's asleep. I need to get him home." "I know." Neither of them moved. And then Ava did something Noah didn't expect. She reached out and took his hand, her fingers threading through his. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For everything." Noah squeezed her hand, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. "Same to you." They stayed like that for a moment that stretched too long. Then Noah forced himself to step back. "I'll see you Monday?" he asked. "Yeah, we need to discuss next steps, what happens after the sale." He nodded and went to collect Liam, who was drooling on one of the staging pillows. As he carried his son to the truck, he glanced back at the house and saw Ava standing in the window, watching them leave. Sunday morning, Noah woke to his phone ringing. "Ava." "Everything okay?" he answered. "My daughter just arrived. She wants to meet you." "What? Why?" "I don't know. She just said she's heard so much about the project and wants to meet the contractor who helped make it happen." Ava sounded almost nervous. "Would you be willing to come by? You could bring Liam. We could grab lunch or something." Noah looked at his son, currently eating cereal and watching cartoons. "Let me ask him." He covered the phone. "Hey, buddy, want to go meet Ava and her daughter for lunch?" Liam perked up. "The cookie lady?" "Yeah." "Okay." They met at a restaurant downtown, a casual place with outdoor seating and a kids' menu. Ava was already there with a woman in her late 20s, dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail, sharp professional clothes. She had Ava's eyes, the same intelligent assessment in her gaze. "Noah, this is my daughter, Claire." Claire, Noah Carter, and his son Liam. Claire stood to shake his hand, her grip firm. "It's good to meet you. Mom's told me a lot about the project." "Hopefully good things," Noah said, settling into his seat with Liam next to him. Mostly, though she left out the part about you climbing on the roof in the middle of a thunderstorm. Claire glanced at her mother. That was reckless. That was necessary, Ava countered. Still reckless. They ordered food and talked, the conversation flowing easier than Noah expected. Claire asked intelligent questions about the construction process, about the challenges they'd faced. She seemed genuinely interested, not just making polite conversation. Liam, meanwhile, was drawing on his placemat with the crayons the waitress had brought. "What are you drawing?" Claire asked him. "The house my dad fixed. It has big windows and a cool kitchen." "Did you help build it?" Liam nodded enthusiastically. "I held the measuring tape. It was really important." Claire smiled. "I bet it was." After lunch, while Liam was in the bathroom with Noah, Claire turned to her mother. "So that's him." "That's him," Ava confirmed. "He's not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Someone more polished? Corporate?" Claire stirred her iced tea. "He seems genuine. And the way he is with his kid, that's sweet. He's a good father. He's been fighting for custody." "And you've been helping him?" Ava's expression shifted, defensive. "I've been supportive, as a friend." "Mom." "What?" Claire leaned forward. "I've seen the way you look at him, and the way he looks at you. This is more than a professional relationship. It's complicated. Everything with you is complicated." But Claire's voice was gentle. "For what it's worth, I think it's good. You deserve someone who sees you as more than just the company. We're not together. Not yet." Ava started to protest, but Noah and Liam returned before she could. They said their goodbyes in the parking lot, Claire hugging her mother and whispering something Noah couldn't hear. Then she shook his hand again. "Take care of her," Claire said quietly. "She acts tough, but she's not as invincible as she pretends." Noah didn't know how to respond to that, so he just nodded. As they drove back to his apartment, Liam said, "I like Ava." "Yeah?" "She's nice, and her daughter's nice too." He looked up at Noah. "Do you like her?" "I like both of them." "No, I mean, do you like her? Like how Mom and Dave like each other?" Noah's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Rachel was seeing someone. He shouldn't be surprised, shouldn't care, but something in his chest twisted anyway. "It's complicated, buddy. That's what grown-ups always say when they mean yes." Out of the mouths of 7-year-olds. That night, after he'd dropped Liam back at Rachel's, Noah sat alone in his apartment feeling the emptiness. 2 days with his son had been incredible, but now the silence felt heavier than before. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through messages, stopping on Ava's name. He typed out a text, deleted it, typed another, deleted that too. Finally settled on something simple. "Thanks for lunch." Liam had a great time. Her response came a few minutes later. "Claire really liked you, said you seem like a good guy." High praise? From her, absolutely. She doesn't trust easily. Wonder where she gets that. Hilarious. "How are you doing? First weekend with Liam back?" Noah stared at the question, his thumbs hovering over the keyboard. How was he doing? Exhausted, elated, terrified, hopeful, all of it at once. Good, hard. Good hard, if that makes sense. It does. "How are you?" "Big day yesterday." Relieved. Still waiting for everything to fall apart, but so far it's holding. It'll hold. You built it too well. There was a pause, then 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times before her next message came through. "I keep thinking about what comes next. After the sale, after the dust settles, I've been so focused on survival I forgot to plan for success. Maybe that's okay. Maybe you just figure it out as you go. Is that what you're doing?" Noah thought about the question. Was he figuring it out? Or was he still just reacting, moving from crisis to crisis without any real direction? "I'm trying to. Don't know if I'm doing it right. I don't think there is a right way. Just the way that works for you." They texted back and forth for another hour, the conversation meandering from the house to their kids to nothing important. By the time Noah finally said goodnight, something had shifted. A line had been crossed, or maybe just acknowledged. Whatever this was between them, it wasn't going away. And for the first time in a long time, Noah wasn't sure he wanted it to. Monday morning brought news that should have felt like victory. Ava called Noah while he was replacing a cracked tile in his apartment bathroom, her voice tight with something he couldn't quite identify. "We got the sale," she said. Full asking price, cash buyer, closing in 30 days. Noah set down his tools. That's incredible. Why don't you sound happy? I am happy. I think. It's just hitting me that it's actually over. She paused. Can we meet? I need to talk to you about something. They met at the house an hour later. The staging furniture was gone, leaving the rooms empty again, but somehow they still felt full. Every corner held a memory of the work they'd done, the fights they'd fought, the moments they'd survived together. Ava was standing in the kitchen when Noah arrived, her laptop open on the counter. So, she said, not quite meeting his eyes. The board wants to celebrate. Investor dinner, press conference, the whole thing. They want to make a big deal out of how we overcame adversity and came out stronger. Makes sense. You did overcome it. We did. She finally looked at him. That's the problem. They want to frame this as my victory, my leadership, my strategic thinking. And I can't do that without acknowledging you, but the second I acknowledge you publicly, we're back to the photograph problem. People questioning my judgment, investors wondering if I'm compromised. Noah felt something cold settle in his stomach. So what are you saying? I'm saying I don't know how to handle this. Part of me wants to tell them all to go to hell, that you were essential to this project and deserve recognition. But the other part knows that doing that could undo everything we've worked for. You want me to stay invisible? No, that's not what I want at all. She rubbed her temples. What I want is for the world to be different, for people to see a professional relationship between a woman and a man and not immediately assume there's something inappropriate happening. But that's not the world we live in. Noah walked to the window, looking out at the yard they'd cleared months ago. You know what the funny thing is? I don't even care about the recognition. I never expected it, but hearing you struggle with whether to mention my name feels like being erased. You're not being erased. Then what am I being? Ava didn't have an answer for that. They stood in silence for a long moment, the weight of unspoken things pressing down on both of them. Finally, Noah turned back to face her. Do what you need to do, he said. For your company, for your investors. I get it. I've always gotten it. Noah, I mean it. This was always your project. I was just the guy with the hammer. He grabbed his jacket from where he tossed it on the counter. Congratulations on the sale, you earned it. He left before she could respond, and the look on her face followed him all the way to his truck. The next few days passed in a blur of silence. No calls from Ava, no texts, nothing. Noah threw himself into small jobs around town, fixing a deck here, replacing a fence there. Mindless work that kept his hands busy and his thoughts from spiraling. Liam noticed the change when he came over Friday night. You're quiet, his son said, watching Noah make dinner. Just tired, buddy. Is it because of Ava? Noah nearly dropped the pot he was holding. What? Mom said you probably got your feelings hurt because of work stuff. Liam swung his legs from where he sat on the counter. Did you? It's complicated. That's what you always say. Because it's always true. Noah set the pot down, turning to look at his son. Sometimes grown-ups care about each other, but the world makes it hard for them to show it. And that's confusing, and it hurts, but it doesn't mean the caring wasn't real. Liam processed this, his face scrunched up in thought. Do you care about Ava? Yeah, I do. Does she care about you? I think so. Then why can't you just tell each other that? Out of the mouths of 7-year-olds again. Because sometimes caring about someone means protecting them, even if it means protecting them from you. Liam didn't look satisfied with that answer, but he dropped it. They ate dinner and played video games, and Noah tried to be present, but part of his mind kept drifting back to Ava, to the look on her face when he'd walked out, to the question of whether he'd just made everything worse. Saturday morning, Rachel called. Liam said you're upset about something, she said, no preamble. I'm fine. You're not fine. And whatever's going on, it's affecting him. He was asking me last night if you were going to stop seeing him again. Noah's chest tightened. What? Why would he think that? Because every time something goes wrong in your life, you disappear. That's the pattern he knows. Rachel's voice softened slightly. Look, I'm not trying to be harsh, but you've got unsupervised visitation now. You're this close to joint custody. Don't mess it up because you're dealing with personal drama. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Noah didn't know how to explain it without making it sound exactly like what Rachel was implying. I finished a big project. The client and I had a Disagreement about how to handle the end of it. That's all. The client being the woman Liam keeps talking about? Yes. Are you involved with her? No. Do you want to be? Noah was quiet for too long. That's what I thought, Rachel said. Just be careful, Noah. You've worked hard to get your life together. Don't let someone derail that. After he hung up, Noah sat on his couch with his head in his hands. Everyone had an opinion about what he should do, how he should handle this, but none of them understood what it felt like to care about someone and know that caring might cost them everything. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "This is Claire. Got your number from my mom's phone. We need to talk." He stared at the message, debating whether to respond. Finally typed back. "About what?" "About the fact that my mother's been miserable for 3 days and won't tell me why. Meet me for coffee tomorrow? I'm still in town." Against his better judgment, Noah agreed. But then, they met at a coffee shop Sunday afternoon. Claire was already there, 2 cups on the table in front of her. "I ordered you a black coffee," she said. "Mom mentioned you drink it that way." "Thanks." Noah sat down, immediately uncomfortable. "What's this about?" "My mother's in love with you." Noah nearly choked on his coffee. "What?" "She won't admit it, obviously, but I've never seen her like this. She talks about you constantly, checks her phone every 5 minutes, hoping you've texted. And when I asked her what was wrong yesterday, she nearly started crying." Claire leaned forward. "So whatever happened between you two, it's eating her alive." "We're not together. We were never together." "I know, she told me, but that doesn't change how she feels." Claire paused. "Or how you feel, apparently." Noah set his cup down. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because my mother spent the last year fighting everyone and everything to save her company. She cut people out of her life, burned bridges, sacrificed relationships, all in the name of protecting what my father built. And now that she's finally won, she's about to sacrifice the one thing that actually makes her happy because she's too scared to fight for it. It's not that simple. It never is. But let me ask you something. Do you care about her?" "Of course I do." "Then why are you letting her push you away?" "Because I'm trying to protect her. If people think there's something between us, it undermines everything she's accomplished. She becomes the woman who compromised a project for personal reasons, instead of the CEO who exposed corruption and saved her company." Claire sat back, studying him. "You know what's funny? That's exactly what she said about protecting you, that acknowledging your role publicly would put a target on your back, make you part of the story instead of just letting you live your life." Noah blinked. "She said that?" "Last night, when I finally got her to talk. She said she wanted to give you credit for everything you did, but she was worried it would complicate your custody case, that your ex-wife would use it against you, say you were distracted or involved in something inappropriate." He hadn't considered that, hadn't thought about Ava trying to protect him the same way he was trying to protect her. "So what am I supposed to do?" Noah asked. "Show up at her office and tell her we should risk everything for something that might not even work out?" "No. You show up and tell her the truth, that you care about her, that she matters, and then you figure out the rest together." Claire stood, gathering her purse. "My mother's been alone for a long time. She's convinced herself that's how it has to be, that letting someone in means losing control. But you've already gotten in, whether she wants to admit it or not. The question is whether you're going to stay there or walk away." She left, and Noah sat alone with his cooling coffee, her words echoing in his head. He didn't go to Ava's office. Instead, he went back to the house on Maple Ridge. It was technically sold, but closing wasn't for another few weeks, and he still had a key. He let himself in, standing in the empty living room where he'd first met her all those months ago. The place looked different now, not just because it was renovated, but because it held a story. Every room represented a battle they'd fought, a problem they'd solved, a moment they'd survived. The kitchen where they'd planned their strategy against Cross. The hallway where they'd worked through the night fixing violations that didn't exist. The roof they'd secured together in the middle of a storm. He heard the front door open behind him. "I figured you'd be here," Ava said. Noah turned. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. But she was here. "Claire told you we talked?" he asked. "She told me she ambushed you with coffee and emotional manipulation. Her words, not mine." Ava walked into the room, maintaining distance between them. I'm sorry. She shouldn't have done that. I'm not. Ava looked at him, something uncertain in her expression. No? No. Because she made me realize I've been an idiot. Noah took a step toward her. I walked out the other day because I was hurt. Because I felt like I was being erased, like I didn't matter. But I didn't stop to think about why you were struggling with how to handle things. I was trying to protect you. I know, and I was trying to protect you. And we were both so busy protecting each other that we didn't actually talk about what we wanted. Ava's voice came out barely above a whisper. What do you want? Noah closed the distance between them, stopping just close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her eyes. I want to stop pretending this is just professional. I want to stop worrying about what people will think or how it looks or whether it's the right time. I want to be honest about the fact that somewhere between the first inspection and the last nail, I started caring about you in a way that has nothing to do with construction. She was quiet for a long moment, and Noah's heart hammered against his ribs. Then she reached out, her hand finding his. I'm terrified, she said, of losing the company, of people thinking I'm weak, of letting someone in only to have them leave. I've spent so long building walls that I don't know how to take them down. You don't have to take them all down at once. Just maybe leave a door open. Ava laughed, shaky and wet, and Noah realized she was crying. I've been miserable without you. These past few days felt like I'd cut off my own arm, and I kept telling myself it was necessary, that it was protecting both of us, but really I was just scared. Of what? Of this. Of caring about someone enough that losing them would actually matter. She squeezed his hand. My father died and left me his company, and I threw myself into it because it was easier than dealing with the grief. I've been doing that for years, using work as a shield against feeling anything real. And then you showed up with your terrible jokes and your honest work and your stubborn refusal to give up. And suddenly, I couldn't hide anymore. Noah pulled her closer, his other hand coming up to cup her face. You don't have to hide. Not from me. What if people find out? What if it affects your custody case, or my investors panic, or then we deal with it, together? He brushed his thumb across her cheek, wiping away a tear. I'm tired of living my life based on what might go wrong. I want to try living it based on what might go right. Ava leaned into his touch, her eyes closing. I don't know how to do this. How to be with someone while still running a company and dealing with all the pressure, and we figure it out as we go, same way we figured out everything else. She opened her eyes, looking at him with something that might have been hope. You make it sound simple. It's not simple, it's terrifying. But I'd rather be terrified with you than safe without you. Ava let out a breath, and then she was kissing him. Her hands sliding into his hair, his arms wrapping around her waist, both of them holding on like they were afraid to let go. It wasn't gentle or perfect or any of the things movies made kissing look like. It was desperate and messy and real, months of tension and denial finally breaking free. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Ava rested her forehead against his. We're going to have to be careful, she said, so smart about how we handle this publicly. I know. And there's going to be people who judge us, who think I'm compromising my position or you're taking advantage or any number of horrible things. I know that too. And my daughter's probably going to grill you relentlessly about your intentions. Noah smiled, looking forward to it. Ava pulled back enough to look at him properly. You're serious about this? About us? Completely. Even knowing it's going to be complicated? Especially knowing that? He tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. I've done simple before. It didn't work out so well. I'm ready to try complicated. They spent the rest of the afternoon in the empty house, talking about how to navigate what came next. Ava had the investor dinner in 2 weeks, and they agreed she'd acknowledge Noah's contribution to the project professionally as the lead contractor who'd executed her vision. Nothing more, nothing less. Let the work speak for itself. As for their personal relationship, they'd keep it quiet for now. Not hidden exactly, but private. At least until after Noah's 6-month custody review. The last thing either of them needed was ammunition for people looking to cause problems. It wasn't perfect, but it was a plan. And after months of chaos and uncertainty, having any kind of plan felt like progress. As the sun started to set, Noah's phone rang. Rachel, Liam wants to talk to you, she said, and handed the phone over before Noah could respond. Dad? Hey, buddy. What's up? I just wanted to make sure you're okay. You seemed sad yesterday. Noah glanced at Ava, who was watching him with a soft expression. I'm okay now. Better than okay, actually. Did you figure out the complicated thing? Yeah, I think I did. Good. Liam yawned. Mom says I have to go to bed, but I wanted to say goodnight first. Good night, kiddo. I'll see you Friday. Love you, Dad. Noah's throat tightened. Love you too. After he hung up, Ava moved closer, her hand finding his. He's a good kid. He's the best thing I've ever done. Not the only good thing. She gestured around the room. This place is pretty incredible too. We built that together. Yeah, we did. She leaned her head on his shoulder. What do you think happens to it? After it sells, someone moves in, makes it a home, lives the life we helped make possible. That's a nice thought. They sat in the fading light, both of them quiet, both of them finally allowing themselves to just be. After months of fighting and surviving and proving themselves, they'd earned this moment of peace. Noah's phone buzzed again. This time a text from a number he didn't recognize. This is Daniel Cross. We need to talk. He stared at the message, his entire body going cold. What's wrong? Ava asked, noticing his expression. He showed her the phone. She went rigid. He's supposed to be under investigation. Why would he contact you? I don't know. Another text came through. I know you and Sterling think you've won. You haven't. Meet me tomorrow at the construction site on Mill Road. 9 a.m. Come alone, or I go to the media with information that will destroy both of you. Ava grabbed the phone, reading the message. This is a threat. We need to call the police. And tell them what? He hasn't actually done anything yet. Noah, this could be dangerous. Or it could be a bluff. Cross is desperate. His career's over. He's facing criminal charges. His whole life is falling apart. He's probably just trying to scare us. What if he's not? Noah looked at her, seeing the fear in her eyes. Then I guess we find out tomorrow. You're not going alone. The text said, I don't care what it said. If you're walking into a potential trap, I'm coming with you. Her voice was firm, no room for argument. We've faced everything else together. We're facing this together too. Whoa. Monday morning came too fast. Noah barely slept, running through scenarios of what Cross might want, what information he could possibly have that would be damaging enough to threaten them with. The corruption case was solid, the evidence overwhelming. Cross had nothing left to lose, which made him unpredictable. Ava picked Noah up at 8:30. She was dressed in jeans and a jacket, her hair pulled back, looking more like she was heading to a construction site than a confrontation with a corrupt official. You sure about this? Noah asked as he climbed into her car. No, but I'm doing it anyway. They drove in tense silence to the Mill Road site, an abandoned commercial property that had been slated for development before the permits got mysteriously stalled. Noah had a pretty good idea who'd been responsible for that now. Cross's truck was already there when they arrived. He was standing near the chain-link fence, smoking a cigarette, looking older and more worn down than Noah remembered. I said, come alone, Cross said as they approached. And I said, I don't take orders from criminals, Ava replied. What do you want, Daniel? Cross took a long drag, then dropped the cigarette and crushed it under his boot. I want you to know that you didn't win. You think exposing me and Vance changes anything. There are a dozen more like us, operating the same way, and you just made yourself their enemy. Is that a threat? Noah asked. It's a warning. You cost powerful people a lot of money. They don't forget things like that. He pulled out his phone, showing them a photo. And they're very good at finding leverage. The photo showed Noah and Ava kissing in the house on Maple Ridge. Taken through a window, grainy but unmistakable. Ava's face went white. When did you take that? Yesterday? I've been watching the property. Figured you'd show up eventually. And look at that. I was right. Cross smiled, ugly and satisfied. Here's how this works. You drop the charges against me, convince the DA that you were mistaken about the evidence, and this photo never sees the light of day. That's blackmail, Noah said. That's business. You two want to play house? Fine. But it's going to cost you. Cross pocketed his phone. You've got 48 hours to make it happen. After that, this goes to every news outlet, every investor, every person in your life who might care that the great Ava Sterling was sleeping with her contractor while supposedly running a corruption-free project. We weren't sleeping together during the project, Ava said, her voice shaking with anger. And even if we were, that's not illegal or unethical. We're both adults, both single. Doesn't matter. It's the optics. You know how this works. Cross started walking back to his truck. 48 hours. Think carefully. After he drove off, Ava and Noah stood in the empty lot, the morning sun harsh and unforgiving. He's bluffing, Noah said, but he didn't sound convinced. The DA's case is solid. There's no way we could get the charges dropped even if we wanted to. He doesn't care about the charges. He cares about revenge. Ava pulled out her phone. I need to call Patricia and Claire and figure out how to handle this before it explodes. Ava, this is exactly what I was afraid of. Exactly why I tried to keep distance between us. And now it's happening anyway. She wasn't crying, but her hands were shaking. If that photo goes public, the narrative changes from CEO exposes corruption to CEO compromises project for personal reasons. Everything we accomplished gets reframed through the worst possible lens. Only if we let it. How do we not let it? Cross has evidence. He can control when and how it gets released. We're at his mercy. Noah took her hand, forcing her to look at him. Or we take away his power. We control the narrative ourselves. How? We tell the truth before he can twist it. Noah's mind was racing, pieces clicking together. The investor dinner's in 2 weeks, right? You were planning to talk about the project, about overcoming adversity. What if you include this? What if you're honest about the fact that during the hardest fight of your professional life, you found someone who stood beside you, that it started as work and became something more? And that doesn't diminish what we accomplished. It proves it. That's insane. Maybe. But it's better than letting Cross dictate how our story gets told. He squeezed her hand. You said you were tired of hiding, of letting fear make your decisions. This is what not hiding looks like. Ava stared at him, and he could see her working through it, weighing risks and possibilities. Finally, she pulled out her phone again. I need to talk to Claire, and my board, and probably a PR team. She looked up at Noah. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. Full transparency, complete honesty, and a clear message that our personal relationship has nothing to do with the integrity of the project. We can prove that. Every document is time-stamped, every decision documented. The timeline shows we didn't even acknowledge our feelings until after the project was complete. Cross will say we're lying. Let him. His credibility is shot. Ours isn't. What? The next 48 hours were a whirlwind. Ava met with her board, with Patricia, with a crisis management consultant who specialized in exactly this kind of situation. Claire flew back to town, bringing with her a forensic timeline of the entire project that she'd been compiling for her own analysis of her mother's business practices. This is actually useful, the PR consultant, a sharp woman named Margaret, said, reviewing Claire's work. It shows clear professional boundaries maintained throughout the project duration. The relationship only began after completion, which is entirely appropriate. Cross won't care about appropriate, Ava said. Cross isn't your audience. Your investors are. Your board. The public who's been following this story. Margaret looked up from the documents. Right now, you're the hero who exposed corruption. If Cross releases that photo, he's the villain trying to tear you down with petty revenge. That's a narrative we can work with. They crafted a statement, revised it a dozen times, ran it past lawyers and board members, and anyone else who might have input. By Wednesday evening, they had something Ava could live with. Thursday morning, before Cross's deadline, Ava held a press conference. Noah watched it from his apartment, Liam sitting next to him on the couch. Rachel had agreed to let him pick up his son early, sensing something important was happening. Is that Ava? Liam asked, pointing at the screen. Yeah, buddy. Why is she on TV? Because she's got something important to say. On screen, Ava stood behind a podium, reporters filling the room in front of her. She looked calm, composed, every inch the CEO who'd saved her company. Thank you all for coming, she began. I'm here today to address several matters related to the Maple Ridge property project and the subsequent corruption investigation. First, I want to confirm that the project was completed on time and under budget, with no code violations and full compliance with all regulations. The The sale has been finalized, and the property will soon be home to a family who deserves a beautiful, well-built house. She paused, taking a breath. Second, I want to acknowledge the role of Noah Carter, the lead contractor on this project. His skill, dedication, and integrity were instrumental in its success. He worked tirelessly through fabricated violations, deliberate delays, and attempts to sabotage our progress. Without him, this project would have failed. Noah's chest tightened, hearing his name spoken publicly after all the careful distance they'd maintained. Third, I want to address a matter of personal nature. During the course of this project, Mr. Carter and I developed a friendship based on mutual respect and shared goals. After the project's completion, that friendship evolved into a personal relationship. I'm disclosing this now because I believe in transparency and because I won't allow anyone to use it as a weapon against either of us. Murmurs rippled through the press corps. I'm aware that some may view this as inappropriate or question my judgment. To them, I say this: my personal life does not define my professional capabilities. The project succeeded because of sound planning, excellent execution, and unwavering commitment to quality. That would be true regardless of whether Noah Carter and I were friends, colleagues, or something more. She looked directly into the camera, and Noah felt like she was talking straight to him. I've spent my entire career proving I belong in spaces that weren't built for people like me, and I'm tired of apologizing for being human while doing it. Noah Carter is a good man, a skilled professional, and someone I'm proud to have in my life. That's all anyone needs to know. The press conference continued with questions, but Noah barely heard them. Liam was tugging on his sleeve. Dad, did she just say you're her boyfriend? Noah looked at his son, seeing curiosity, but no judgment. Sort of. Is that okay? Liam thought about it. I like her. She gave me cookies, and she's nice to you. She is nice to me. Then yeah, it's okay. Noah pulled his son into a hug, feeling something settle in his chest. If he could handle this, maybe everyone else could too. His phone rang immediately after. Rachel. I just saw the news, she said, her voice tight. Rachel, is this what you were dealing with? The project stress Liam mentioned? Part of it, yeah. She was quiet for a long moment. Are you serious about her? Yes. And this isn't going to affect your ability to be there for Liam? No. If anything, it makes me more stable. She understands what I'm trying to build here. Another pause. Okay. But Noah, if this relationship falls apart and it messes up the progress you've made, I won't hesitate to go back to court. I know, and I wouldn't blame you. He glanced at Liam, who was still watching the TV. But it's not going to fall apart. Not if I can help it. After he hung up, his phone exploded with messages. His lawyer, Ellen, congratulating him on the positive press. Former colleagues from construction jobs, surprised to see him on the news. And finally, Ava. It's done. No going back now, he typed back quickly. No regrets? Ask me in a week when I see how many investors pull out. They won't. You're too good at what you do. I hope you're right. Thank you for pushing me to do this. I would have stayed quiet and let Cross control the narrative. We control our own story now. That's worth something. Everything. It's worth everything. Bas. Cross tried to release the photo anyway, but by then it didn't matter. The narrative was already set, and his attempt at revenge just made him look petty and desperate. The media coverage was surprisingly positive, focusing on Ava's transparency and the corruption she'd exposed rather than her personal life. A few investors did pull out, but they were quickly replaced by others who admired her willingness to be honest. The board held a vote of confidence, and she passed by a wide margin. The company was secure. Friday afternoon, Ava showed up at Noah's apartment. He answered the door in sweatpants and an old t-shirt, surprised to see her. Shouldn't you be at the office celebrating? He asked. I've been at the office for 12 hours straight. I needed to see you. She stepped inside, looking around at the modest space. Is Liam here? He's with Rachel until Sunday. Why? She didn't answer, just pulled him into a kiss that made his knees weak. When they finally broke apart, she was smiling. I wanted to do that without worrying about who might see or what it might cost, she said. Turns out honesty is incredibly freeing. Noah laughed, pulling her closer. Told you. Don't gloat. It's unattractive. I'm not gloating. I'm just really happy to see you. They spent the evening on his couch, talking about everything and nothing. The investor dinner, which was now being reframed as a celebration of transparency and resilience. Noah's custody review, which was coming up in 5 months. Ava's plans to expand the company, maybe take on projects that actually excited her instead of just paying the bills. It felt normal in a way nothing had felt normal in months. Just two people who'd survived something difficult together, figuring out what came next. "I'm scared," Ava admitted as the evening wore on, "of messing this up, of letting the pressure get to me again and pushing you away." "Then don't. It's not that simple." "It kind of is." Noah shifted so he could look at her properly. "We're going to mess up, both of us. We're going to have bad days and say the wrong things and struggle with balancing everything. But as long as we're honest about it, as long as we don't run when things get hard, we'll figure it out. You make it sound easy. I make it sound possible. There's a difference." Ava leaned her head on his shoulder, and they sat like that until the sky outside went dark. For the first time in a long time, Noah wasn't worried about tomorrow. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. And that was enough. The investor dinner arrived on a Saturday evening 2 weeks later, held in a restored warehouse that had been converted into an event space. Exposed brick walls, industrial lighting, the kind of place that screamed expensive without trying too hard. Noah stood outside in his borrowed suit, the one Ellen had insisted he get for court appearances, wondering if he was making a massive mistake. "You look terrified," Claire said, appearing beside him with 2 glasses of champagne. She handed him one. "Relax. These people are mostly harmless." "Mostly?" "There's always 1 or 2 who'll try to corner you and ask invasive questions. Just smile and excuse yourself to the bathroom." She clinked her glass against his. "For what it's worth, I think you're good for her. Mom's been different since you came into her life. Lighter. She's been through a lot. So have you. That's why it works." Claire glanced toward the entrance. "She's inside already, probably giving herself a pep talk in the bathroom. She does that before big events. Should I go check on her?" "Absolutely not. Let her have her moment." Claire squeezed his arm. "Just be yourself tonight. That's all she needs." Inside, the space was filled with people in expensive clothes making expensive conversation. Noah recognized a few faces from the open house, but most were strangers, investors, board members, local officials who wanted to be seen supporting Ava's success. He grabbed a glass of water from the bar and positioned himself near the wall, observing. Ava was in her element, moving through the crowd with practiced grace. She'd chosen a deep green dress that somehow made her look both professional and stunning, her hair swept up in a way that showed off her neck. When she caught Noah's eye across the room, she smiled, and something in his chest loosened. The dinner itself was formal, multiple courses served on white tablecloths while speeches were made. The board chairman talked about Ava's leadership during crisis. An investor discussed the project's success and what it meant for future ventures. Then Ava stood, and the room went quiet. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began, her voice steady. "This has been a challenging year, to put it mildly. When I took over this company after my father's death, many people questioned whether I was capable of filling his shoes. Some of those people are in this room." A few uncomfortable laughs rippled through the crowd. "I don't blame you for doubting. I doubted myself too. But what I learned this year is that leadership isn't about being perfect or having all the answers. It's about being willing to fight for what matters, even when the odds are stacked against you." She paused, looking around the room. The Maple Ridge project could have destroyed this company. Between the corruption, the delays, the sabotage, there were a dozen moments when I could have walked away. But I didn't, because I had people who believed in the work we were doing. My daughter Claire, who helped build the case that exposed Daniel Cross. My legal team, who never stopped fighting. And Noah Carter, who showed up every single day and did the work that needed to be done, no matter how difficult things got. She gestured to where Noah sat, and suddenly every eye in the room was on him. He resisted the urge to sink into his chair. Noah isn't just a contractor. He's a reminder that integrity and skill matter more than politics or perception. He could have quit when Cross started making his life difficult. He could have walked away when things got complicated. Instead, he stayed. And together we built something that will outlast all of us. Ava's voice softened slightly. I've also been asked about my relationship with Noah, and I want to address that directly. Yes, we're involved personally. That began after the project concluded, and it doesn't change anything about the quality of the work or the success of this venture. What it does change is my understanding that you can be strong professionally without being isolated personally, that asking for help isn't weakness, that letting people see your humanity doesn't make you less capable. She looked directly at Noah now. So thank you, Noah, for the house you built, for the courage you showed, and for reminding me that some risks are worth taking. The room erupted in applause. Noah felt his face heating up, but when Ava smiled at him, all the discomfort faded. This was what honesty looked like. Messy and vulnerable and terrifying, but real. After the speeches ended and people moved to the bar for drinks, Noah found himself surrounded by investors wanting to shake his hand, ask about his process, offer him work on future projects. It was overwhelming, but Claire stayed nearby, running interference when conversations got too intense. Finally, he managed to slip outside for air. The evening had cooled down, and he leaned against the brick wall, letting the quiet settle over him. Hiding? Ava's voice came from the doorway. Regrouping. She joined him, standing close enough that their shoulders touched. You handled that well. I barely said anything. Exactly. You let the work speak for itself. She looked up at the sky where stars were just starting to appear. I meant what I said in there, about you reminding me that risks are worth taking. I was just doing my job. No, you were being yourself, and that turned out to be exactly what I needed. She turned to face him. I have something to tell you, and I wanted to do it before we go back in there. Noah's stomach tightened. What? The board offered me a significant expansion budget. They want to take on 3 new projects next year, all high-profile developments. She paused. I turned them down. Why? Because I realized I've been chasing my father's legacy instead of building my own. He wanted quantity, wanted to grow the company as big as possible. But that's not what I want. I want quality. I want to take on projects that matter, that challenge me, that let me work with people I trust. She reached for his hand. I told them I'd do one major project next year, one that I can oversee personally, build the right way, without compromising. That's a big decision. It's the right one. For the first time, I'm making choices based on what I actually want, not what I think I should want. She squeezed his hand. You did that. You showed me it was possible. Noah pulled her closer, not caring who might see. You did that yourself. I just didn't run when things got hard. That's more than most people do. They stood there in the cooling evening, and Noah thought about how far they'd both come. From that first day at the wrecked house on Maple Ridge to this moment, everything had been a battle, but they'd won the battles that mattered. We should go back in, Ava said eventually. People will notice we're gone. Let them notice, she laughed, the sound light and genuine. Is this what being honest feels like? Just doing what you want instead of managing perceptions? Pretty much. I think I like it. The following Monday, Noah got a call from the district attorney's office. Cross had taken a plea deal, avoiding trial in exchange for a guilty plea and cooperation in the larger investigation into real estate fraud. Vance and 2 other investors were facing federal charges. The whole scheme was unraveling, and Ava's case had been the thread that pulled it apart. You helped take down a criminal enterprise, Ellen told him over the phone. That's going to look very good in your custody review. I just built a house. You did a lot more than that, and the judge is going to see it. That Friday, Liam came to stay for the weekend again. He was getting more comfortable at Noah's apartment, leaving toys scattered around and treating the place like it was actually his. Rachel had even agreed to let Noah have him for a full week over winter break, a concession that felt monumental. Saturday morning, Noah took Liam to breakfast at the diner where he and Ava had met after the court hearing. Ava joined them, sliding into the booth with coffee and a smile. Morning, she said, ruffling Liam's hair. How's my favorite measuring tape holder? Good. Dad says we're going to the park after breakfast. That sounds fun. Want company? Liam looked at Noah, seeking permission. Noah nodded, and his son beamed. Yeah! They spent the afternoon at the park, Liam racing between playground equipment while Noah and Ava sat on a bench watching. Other families were scattered around, living their normal Saturday lives, and for the first time in years, Noah felt like he was part of that normalcy instead of looking in from the outside. This is nice, Ava said quietly. It is. Think we can keep it? Noah thought about the question. Could they keep this? The peace, the stability, the feeling of building something that lasted? History said probably not. Life had a way of throwing chaos at you just when you got comfortable. But maybe that was the point. Maybe it wasn't about keeping things perfect, but about being willing to fight for them when they inevitably got messy. "I think we can try," he said. Liam ran over, out of breath and grinning. "Dad, can Ava come to dinner with us?" "If she wants to." Ava looked at both of them, something soft in her expression. "I'd love to." They went to a pizza place Liam loved, one with arcade games and terrible lighting and pizza that was mostly grease. Ava didn't complain, just rolled with it, playing skee-ball with Liam and laughing when she lost spectacularly. Watching them together, Noah felt something settle in his chest. This was what he'd been fighting for all along. Not perfection, not some idealized version of family, but this. Real people making real connections, messy and imperfect, and worth everything. The custody review happened 3 months later in early spring. Noah sat in the same courtroom with the same judge, but everything felt different. He had 6 months of consistent visitation, glowing references from his employer and from Ava's company, and a stability that showed in every aspect of his life. Rachel's lawyer tried to raise concerns about Noah's relationship with Ava, suggesting it might be a distraction. But Ellen was ready. "Mr. Carter's relationship with Miss Sterling has been entirely positive for his stability," she argued. "He's employed on multiple projects through her company, he has a strong support system, and he's demonstrated consistent responsibility in all aspects of his life. The relationship in question is between 2 consenting adults and has no bearing on his parenting ability." Judge Martinez reviewed the file, her expression neutral. Finally, she looked up. "Mr. Carter, you've completed the 6-month review period with no incidents. You've maintained employment, housing, and sobriety. Your son clearly wants more time with you, and I see no reason to deny that." Noah held his breath. "I'm granting joint custody, effective immediately. You and Ms. Carter will share parenting time equally, with the understanding that this arrangement can be modified if circumstances change." Noah's eyes stung. He didn't trust his voice, so he just nodded. After the hearing, Rachel approached him in the hallway. "Don't make me regret this," she said, but there was less edge in her voice than usual. "I won't. Liam's going to be so happy. He's been asking about this every day." She hesitated, then added, "You've really changed, Noah. I can see it, and I'm glad." It was the closest thing to approval he'd gotten from her in years, and it meant more than he'd expected. That evening, he told Liam the news. His son's reaction was immediate and explosive, launching himself at Noah with a hug that nearly knocked them both over. "Does this mean I get to stay with you half the time?" "Yeah, buddy, half the time." "Can we paint my room and get a bigger bookshelf and maybe a fish tank?" Noah laughed, the sound coming from somewhere deep in his chest. "We can definitely paint your room. The fish tank we'll discuss." "Can Ava help pick the color?" "If she wants to." When he called Ava with the news, she answered on the first ring. "How'd it go?" "Joint custody, starting immediately." "Noah, that's incredible." He could hear the smile in her voice. "We should celebrate. Dinner tonight?" "Liam's already making plans to redecorate his room. Apparently you're helping." "Oh, I'm involved in the decorating now?" "Seems like it." "Good, that room needs color. It's too beige." They talked for another 20 minutes about nothing important, and Noah realized this was what happiness felt like. Not some grand moment or perfect achievement, but the small accumulation of good days and people who cared about you. Summer arrived with heat and humidity, and with it came Ava's new project. She'd chosen to renovate a historic building downtown, converting it into affordable housing. It was ambitious and complicated and exactly the kind of thing that excited her. She'd asked Noah to be the lead contractor, and he'd agreed without hesitation. They worked together through the summer heat, their relationship now an open fact that no one seemed particularly bothered by. The crew accepted it, the investors accepted it, even the local press had moved on to other stories. Turned out that when you stopped treating something like a scandal, people stopped seeing it as one. Liam spent his summer bouncing between his parents, seemingly unbothered by the split time. If anything, he thrived on it, getting different experiences from each household. With Noah, it was construction sites and hardware stores and learning how to fix things. With Rachel, it was structured activities and homework and normalcy. The kid needed both. One August afternoon, while they were taking a break from the heat in the shade of the building, Ava's phone rang. She checked the screen and her expression shifted. "It's the buyer of the Maple Ridge house," she said, answering. "Hello? Yes, this is Ava Sterling." Noah watched her face change as she listened, concern giving way to something that might have been amusement. "I see. And they're happy with it? No, that's wonderful to hear. Thank you for calling." She hung up, shaking her head. "What?" Noah asked. "The family that bought the house wanted me to know they love it. Apparently their daughter calls it the Princess Castle because of the turret we added to the design." Ava smiled. "They wanted to thank us for building something their family could grow in." Noah thought about that house, about everything it had cost them, and everything it had given back. A family was living there now, making memories in rooms he'd built with his own hands. That little girl would grow up in that space, never knowing about the corruption or the storms or the fights that had made it possible. "That's a good feeling," he said. "It really is." Ava leaned against him despite the heat. "Makes all the other stuff worth it. The corruption and blackmail and public scrutiny. All of it." She looked up at him. "I used to think success meant winning, meant being untouchable. But this feels more like success than anything else I've done. Knowing we built something that matters, that will outlast us." Noah understood what she meant. Success wasn't the awards or the recognition or even the money. It was the work itself, the knowledge that you'd done something real. Well said. That fall, Liam started third grade. He'd adjusted to the custody arrangement so well that his teacher commented on how happy and settled he seemed. Noah attended parent-teacher conferences alongside Rachel, the two of them managing to be civil, if not exactly friendly. Dave, Rachel's boyfriend, was there too, and Noah found himself not hating the guy. They all wanted the same thing, ultimately. For Liam to be okay. In October, Ava took Noah to a company event, a fundraiser for affordable housing initiatives. She introduced him to everyone as her partner. No qualifiers or explanations needed. People asked about their current project, about the Maple Ridge house, about their plans. No one asked about the scandal anymore. It was old news, replaced by the actual work they were doing. Claire was there too, having flown in for the event. She pulled Noah aside at one point, champagne in hand. "I want to thank you," she said. "For what?" "For giving my mom back. For the longest time after Dad died, it was like she disappeared into the shell of herself. All work, no life. But she's different now, present, happy." Claire raised her glass. "That's because of you." "I think she did that herself." "Maybe, but you showed her it was possible." Claire clinked her glass against his bottle of beer. "Don't mess it up." "I'll do my best." November brought the first real cold snap, and with it, the completion of Ava's downtown project. They transformed the historic building into something beautiful and functional. 20 units of affordable housing that would actually help people. The ribbon-cutting ceremony was small, attended mostly by local officials and the future residents. One woman, a single mother with 2 kids, thanked Ava with tears in her eyes. "I've been on the waiting list for affordable housing for 3 years," she said. "This is going to change everything for my family." Ava hugged her, and Noah saw the emotion in her face. This was why she'd turned down the expansion, why she'd chosen quality over quantity. Moments like this, where the work directly improved someone's life. That night, at Ava's house, they sat on her couch with wine and takeout, exhausted and satisfied. "I've been thinking," Ava said, "about next year's project." "Already planning ahead?" "Always. But I want your input this time. What should we build?" Noah thought about it. "Something for families. Like the Maple Ridge house, but bigger. Multiple units, affordable, but well-built. The kind of place where kids can grow up safely." "I like that." She set down her wine glass. "We could do a whole development. Partner with a nonprofit, keep costs down, build something that actually helps people instead of just generating profit. Your investors would hate that. Some of them, but the right ones would see the value." She turned to face him. "I'm tired of building for people who already have everything. I want to build for people who need it." "That's a big shift." "I know, but I think it's the right one." She reached for his hand. "Will you do it with me?" Noah looked at this woman who'd started as a desperate client and become so much more, who'd fought corruption and public scrutiny and her own fears to build something real, who was now proposing they spend the next year building something that mattered instead of something that just made money. "Yeah," he said. "I will." Christmas came, and for the first time in years, Noah felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. He had Liam for Christmas Eve, and they decorated the apartment together, stringing lights that were probably a fire hazard and hanging ornaments that Liam had made in school. Ava came over for dinner, bringing homemade cookies and a gift for Liam that turned out to be an actual fish tank, complete with everything needed to set it up. "You got him the fish tank?" Noah asked, incredulous. "He's been talking about it for months. I couldn't resist." She grinned at Liam's excitement. "Plus, it'll teach him responsibility. It'll teach me how to clean fish tanks. That too." They spent the evening assembling the tank, Liam narrating every step while Noah and Ava followed the incomprehensible instructions. It took 3 hours and multiple curse words, but finally they had a functioning fish tank with 3 goldfish swimming in lazy circles. Liam named them Builder, Hammer, and Princess Castle. After he went to bed, Noah and Ava sat in the living room, surrounded by the chaos of wrapping paper and cookie crumbs. "This is nice," Ava said, her head on Noah's shoulder. "It's a mess." "A nice mess." She lifted her head to look at him. "I got you something too." "Ava, we said no gifts." I lied. She pulled out an envelope from her purse, handing it to him. "Open it." Inside was a check made out to Noah for an amount that made his eyes widen. "What is this?" "Your bonus from the Maple Ridge project. I've been holding on to it because I wanted to give it to you at the right time." She smiled. "Use it for Liam's room, or save it for college, or blow it on something ridiculous. I don't care. You earned it." Noah stared at the check, emotion tightening his throat. "This is too much." "It's exactly right. You saved that project, Noah. You saved my company. This is what you're owed." He set the check aside and pulled her close, kissing her in a way that tried to express everything he couldn't put into words. Gratitude and affection and the overwhelming feeling of being seen, really seen, by another person. "Thank you," he managed when they finally broke apart. "Thank you for being stubborn and refusing to quit and showing me what it looks like to actually fight for something." She settled back against him. "Best decision I ever made was hiring you. Best decision I ever made was taking the job." They fell asleep on the couch, tangled together, and when Noah woke up a few hours later to carry Ava to the bedroom, he took a moment to look around. At the half-built fish tank and the mess of decorations and the lumpy couch that desperately needed replacing. At the life he'd built, imperfect and complicated and entirely his own. He'd lost so much over the years. His marriage, his reputation, time with his son. But somehow, through all of that loss, he'd found something more valuable. He'd found himself again. Found the part of him that could build and create and show up even when things were impossibly hard. And he'd found someone who saw that part of him and didn't run from it. In the bedroom, he set Ava down gently, and she stirred, half awake. "You okay?" she mumbled. "Yeah. Better than okay." "Good." She pulled him down next to her. "Stay. I'm not going anywhere." And he meant it. Not just for tonight, but for all the nights and days ahead. The messy, complicated, entirely imperfect future they were building together. Spring arrived again, bringing with it new growth and the start of their next project. The family housing development broke ground in April, a partnership with a local nonprofit that would create 50 units of affordable housing over the next 2 years. It was ambitious and exhausting, and exactly what both of them needed. They worked side by side, making decisions together, arguing over details, compromising when necessary. It wasn't always easy. Ava could be stubborn, Noah could be overly cautious, and they both had strong opinions about how things should be done. But they'd learned how to navigate those conflicts, how to fight without destroying what they'd built. In May, Noah's lease came up for renewal. He was sitting at his kitchen table, staring at the paperwork, when Ava brought it up. "You could just move in with me," she said casually, like she wasn't suggesting something huge. Noah looked at her. "You want me to move in?" "I have space. You're there half the time anyway. And Liam likes my house, said the yard is better for playing." She set down her coffee. "But only if you want to. No pressure." Noah thought about it. His apartment was small and cramped and never really felt like home. Ava's house was bigger, warmer, had room for Liam to actually have his own space instead of a converted closet. But more than that, it represented something, commitment, a future that wasn't just talked about, but actually built. What about when we fight? He asked. When things get hard. Then we deal with it, same as we've dealt with everything else. She reached across the table for his hand. I'm not asking for perfect, Noah. I'm asking for real. And real includes fights and bad days and all the messy stuff. You sure about this? More sure than I've been about anything in a long time. So he moved in. It took 3 weekends to pack up his apartment and transfer everything to Ava's house, which they both started calling their house without really discussing it. Liam helped, excited about the bigger room and the yard and the fish tank that would have actual space instead of being crammed in a corner. Rachel came by to see the new setup, inspecting it with the critical eye of someone who needed to know her son would be safe. But even she had to admit it was a good environment, stable and comfortable, and clearly full of people who cared about Liam. Just keep doing what you're doing, she said to Noah as she was leaving. He's happy here, I can see it. Thank you for trusting me with this. Rachel nodded, something softening in her expression. You've earned it. By summer, their routine had settled into something that felt sustainable. Noah would work on the construction site during the day, Ava managing the business side and stopping by to check progress. Evenings were spent with Liam when they had him, the three of them cooking dinner together or working on homework or just existing in the same space. When Liam was with Rachel, Noah and Ava had time for themselves, falling asleep tangled together and waking up to face whatever challenges the day brought. The housing project progressed slowly but steadily. They hit obstacles, of course, permit delays, supply chain issues, budget concerns, but nothing like the manufactured chaos Cross had created. These were normal problems with normal solutions, and they tackled them together. One Saturday in July, the first completed unit was ready for its family to move in. Noah and Ava stood back and watched as a young couple with a toddler walked through their new home, their faces lit with joy and disbelief. This is ours, the woman kept saying. We actually get to live here. For as long as you need, Ava confirmed. It's yours. After they left to start moving their belongings, Noah and Ava walked through the empty unit one last time. It was smaller than the Maple Ridge house, simpler, but built with the same care. Every corner was solid, every fixture installed correctly, every detail considered. We did good work here, Noah said. We did. Ava leaned against the kitchen counter, looking around. You know what I realized? This feels better than any high-profit project I've ever done. Watching that family walk in here, seeing what it meant to them. That's what I want to keep doing. Even if it means smaller margins? Especially if it means smaller margins. I've got enough money. What I need is purpose. She looked at him. What we need is purpose. Noah understood what she meant. They'd both spent so long just surviving, fighting to keep their heads above water. But now they had the chance to do more than survive. They could actually build something that mattered, something that helped people who needed it. So we keep doing this, he said. Build more housing, help more families. Until we can't anymore. Ava pushed off the counter, walking over to him. Together. Together, Noah echoed, pulling her close. They stood in the empty kitchen of a house that would soon be filled with life, holding each other in the quiet afternoon, and Noah thought about how far they'd both traveled to get here, from broken and desperate to whole and purposeful. It hadn't been easy or smooth or anything close to perfect, but it had been real, and that made it worth everything. Later that evening, back at their house with Liam, they sat on the back porch watching fireflies emerge in the dusk. Liam was catching them in a jar, his laughter bright in the cooling air. Dad, look how many I got! Noah looked at the jar, where at least a dozen fireflies blinked in chaotic patterns. That's impressive, buddy. Can I keep them? Just for tonight. Then we let them go, okay? Okay. Liam set the jar down carefully, then climbed into the chair between Noah and Ava. Are we always going to live here? Noah and Ava exchanged a glance. For as long as it feels right, Ava said. Why? Because I like it here. I like having my own room, and the yard, and you guys. He looked up at them, his face serious in the way only 7-year-olds could be serious. It feels like home. Noah's throat tightened. Yeah, buddy, it does. They sat there as the darkness deepened and the fireflies multiplied, 3 people who'd found each other through chaos and decided to build something that lasted. Not because it was easy or guaranteed or perfect, but because it was worth the effort. And in the end, that was all any of them could ask for. The chance to build something real with people who mattered, to fight for what was important even when the world made it difficult, to keep showing up day after day and trust that the work would be enough. The house on Maple Ridge stood strong, sheltering a family who called it a princess castle. The affordable housing units were filling up with people who'd been waiting years for a safe place to live. Liam was thriving between two homes that both loved him. And Noah and Ava were building a future together, one imperfect day at a time. The work was never really finished. There would always be another project, another challenge, another storm to weather. But they'd learned how to face those things together, how to hold on to each other when the winds picked up, how to trust that the foundation they'd built was strong enough to withstand whatever came next. Sometimes the greatest construction project wasn't a building at all. It was a life, rebuilt from the wreckage of what came before, assembled piece by piece with care and courage and the willingness to keep trying even when failure seemed inevitable. It was messy and hard and required more of you than you thought you had to give. But when you found people worth building with, when you discovered work that gave you purpose, when you created spaces where others could thrive, that was when the struggle transformed into something else entirely. Not victory exactly, because the fight never really ended, but meaning, connection, the solid satisfaction of knowing you'd built something that mattered. Noah looked at Ava, at Liam, at the home they'd created together, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not happiness exactly, because that was too simple, but contentment. The deep knowledge that he was exactly where he was supposed to be, doing exactly what he was meant to do, with exactly the people who mattered most. The fireflies blinked in the jar, small lights in the gathering darkness. And Noah thought that maybe that's all any of us were. Small lights trying our best to push back against the dark, hoping our efforts would be enough, building whatever we could with the tools we had and the people we found along the way. It wasn't everything, but it was enough. And sometimes, enough was perfect.